Call to order the Warrant and Finance Committee meeting of May 21st, 2013. It's 6:33. First item is roll call. We do have 5 participating members here. We do have quorum. Approval of the agenda. Looking for a motion for that. It's very basic.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as written. Is there any additions, couldn't be too many deletions, but any additions? Hearing none. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as written. All in favor? Thank you. It's unanimous. Okay, there are no minutes to approve. My intention, and you'll see at the end of the meeting here, basically my intention is to have a finalization meeting to approve 5 sets of minutes from the season. But for the moment, we'll move along. Down to opening remarks. The primary purpose of this joint meeting of the Warrant and Finance Committee and Select Board, 1 member, is to make recommendation regarding the town warrant articles for budget year 2013-2014. The proposed budget was discussed in the workshop of April 20th, and the warrant was released by the Board of Selectmen on May 3rd and reviewed by this committee in the workshops of May 6th and May 13th. The workshops were open to the public with provision given to accommodate any comments, questions, or concerns offered, and were recorded for Cable Channel 26 broadcast. Those workshops were the ideal time to present warrant input to both the Board of Selectmen and the Warrant and Finance Committee. At today's meeting, the Warrant and Finance Committee will for the first time be discussing these articles among ourselves, resolving any remaining questions with the assistance of the Board of Selectmen and possibly other parties, and in fact, I am expecting other parties tonight, and then voting our recommendation, which will be duly recorded and placed on the warrant for town meeting on Saturday, June 15th, 9 a.m. at the Acton Elementary School. As fact-finding and discussion proceed this evening, I ask that this remain at all times respectful and professional and relevant to the article which is under consideration. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is public questions or comments, and since we seem to be a little short on public at this moment, I think we'll move on. Town warrant discussion and recommendation. So we're going to start with Article 6, the others not being within Warrant and Finance purview, according to our ordinance, election of officers. So Article 6.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve this article as written. And it's not a long one, so I will take the opportunity to read it. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute and deliver an amended solid waste handling agreement between and among the town of Acton, Casella Waste Systems, Inc., and Pine Tree Waste, Inc., to replace the existing solid waste handling agreement between and among the town, Casella, and Merck for the balance of the existing agreement's term through June 30th, 2025. A copy of the proposed new agreement is on file with the town clerk's office. And we have a motion on the floor, so open for discussion. Nancy, you made the motion, so you get first crack if you have something that you'd like to say.
It works for me.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure at this very moment who was here and who was not here when we actually discussed this, and but I do know for a fact that not all of us were. So it's certainly worth at least doing an overview of this, considering it's not a housekeeping article. This was originally a 25-year contract, correct, Ted?
Correct, yeah.
And we have about half of that remaining. You can see we've got from 2013 to 2025, roughly half of the term remaining. And I'm reasonably sure that, was it Merck folded up shop?
The town of Biddeford bought out, the trash burning facility in Biddeford, and they are tearing it down, so there's no, Merck was involved because Casella and Pine Tree would bring it to Merck, and then Merck would burn it for us. So Casella and Pine Tree are still gonna be involved, but Merck isn't there to burn it anymore, so
And-
that's why they're taken out of the contract.
Where are they going to take it?
They're gonna pick it up in Acton, take it to, Westbrook, tear it all apart, get whatever they can for recycling out of it, then they're gonna pack it back up, and it's going up north someplace to a landfill, I'm not sure what town it's going
I
to.
think it's an old town.
Old
I
Town?
think it's
I
the
believe
old,
so.
if there was some problem about getting it up, getting the Old Town site approved for additional towns. But I think that's, what I was wondering was, it's not gonna affect the town recycling the way we are now.
No, we still recycle, but what they're gonna do is the people that are not recycling and hiding it in their green bags or their trash bags, they're gonna tear it apart and get whatever they can out of that so that they make even more money. So if the people in the town stop, don't throw anything in the dumpster, we'll save in tonnage, plus we'll make money off of the recycling.
Well, the other thing is, in talking to the people up there, you really should let the townspeople know just how much money that transfer station is generating.
Yeah, Bob did it at the selectmen's workshop, and he does it every year on the town floor too. It's over $30,000 this year, just in recycling. And of course, we've been recycling more items over the last several years. We purchased more compactors, one for cardboard and one for tin cans and things like that. So we're getting even more money than we were before. But it's been averaging between $30,000 and $40,000 a year is what we get.
And everything that we recycle is that much less tonnage that we have to pay to have trucked wherever it goes.
Exactly, yeah, because when they come and buy it, they truck it out themselves, so we don't have to pay for any trucking for that weight.
But we have a minimum tonnage, don't we, Ted? No? We used to have a minimum tonnage.
Yeah, I believe the contract was set up that way, right? Yeah, so when the contract was set up in 2000, we had a minimum tonnage, but of course, we've grown a lot since 2000, so I'm sure even if we did recycle everything, I'm sure we'd still meet the minimum tonnage, or they'd still charge us for the minimum tonnage, even if we didn't have that much going out. Yeah, this was developed with several towns in 2000, and the select board at that time agreed, or got the town to agree to put money in for legal fees to develop the contract in the first place. And there was enough money left over so that when this happened, every town paid according to the size of their town. So there was enough money left for an attorney to be hired, the same one that wrote the contract, who's also the attorney for Kennybunk. Then met with them, and the town manager from Kennybunk chaired, representing all the towns. And they got a really good deal, because they had come in at $75 per ton, and they got it down to $70.50 a ton. So they really did a lot of negotiation to get this for all of us. And we would have been paying $89 a ton right now. That would have been changed to $89 a ton in January. So we're saving quite a bit of money.
The people in Acton should be, they really, Acton is one of the towns that recycles. They're pretty near number one when it comes to recycling.
Yes, it's certainly something to congratulate the town for.
Yeah.
I mean, Sanford has traditionally had a low recycling rate, which is why they're having all these problems with the pay-as-you-throw, and, how do we get the people to recycle more, and we have to charge them more if they don't. And in Acton, that's kind of the default, is to actually recycle, which is pretty awesome. And somewhere in here, I have that list of towns. I seem to be missing it. Okay, so as far as that P.O. Box business for the town of Acton, you're just gonna change that at some point? It's not necessarily,
It's on the contract.
it's not enough to throw out, you don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater here.
No.
And can you comment on the fact that we're in fact on a sort of a probational version of this contract now, which is why this particular one is signed already?
Yeah, we were no longer allowed to bring any waste to the burning facility after January 1st, because then it became, Biddeford became the owner.
Yeah.
So we had to sign a provisional contract to get us from January until June.
Yeah.
And so we would still have some place to put our waste. So the attorney said it was okay for the selectmen, and we did it at the selectmen's meeting. It was okay for us to sign a temporary contract under the condition that we put it on as a warrant article this summer for the town to vote forward. Yeah, it was, Kennybunk was there, York was there, Wells was there, Shapley, Lebanon, Acton, Berwick's were there.
Let's do this.
And it was the Kennybunks, because it was Kennybunk and Kennybunk Port, and so it was all in Arundel.
Yale, I think.
LE,
LE?
yeah, I think so, isn't it? No.
Well, you said
LE.
Arundel in Arundel, but I don't think they're spelled the same.
I don't know. Oh, EL, yeah.
And
guess you're right.
unfortunately, the search engine is not working on this one. So, anyway, it's in there somewhere, and I did encounter the towns on the way by, and I even stopped at it, so folks at home probably have that. Anyway, so the bottom line is, all of these towns at this time are having some form of this warrant article at their town meeting.
Yeah, actually, the warrant article was written by the attorney, so every town's using the same article.
And I apologize for making everybody's eyes spin if you're actually looking at this screen here, but, oh well. It's in there somewhere, it's 32 pages. Anyway, I did read through it. I'm certainly not a lawyer, but I didn't see anything that raised the hair on the back of my neck. It all seems pretty straightforward, and really the only notable part of it, really worth laying out is this portion here. That right now, in the current budget year, we're spending $70,239. Next year, it's expected to be $64,084, 8.7% decrease, and that's this first line item. The fee schedule is actually on an escalating basis. I believe it's $1
A ton per year.
yeah, so 70, 50 a ton, 71, 72, 73, et cetera, 50 per ton. And just to kind of keep this all on the same page, we're assuming 909 tons per year, which is what we had this current year. Obviously, that's not necessarily going to be the same thing, but just to kind of keep it to something we can wrap our heads around, we just assume the same tonnage each year. But you get a feel over on the right here for the fact that roughly halfway through the remaining period, we're going to break even according to our current rate. And then from there on, we're going to be paying a little bit more per ton than we are now. However, who knows what's going to be going on in 2025 and how much we're actually going to be tossing versus recycling, et cetera. But overall, it seems a very good deal.
Yeah, it's another reason to continue to try and get the citizens to recycle even more.
Right.
Because the more we recycle, that 909 will go down.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and you gotta realize that we would have been paying on January 1st, 2013, we would have been paying $89 a ton, and now we're down to $70.50 a ton. So it's a substantial drop. We didn't take that out of their budget this year. When we get to that, I can explain. We did take some of their leftover money to pay down their increases. We did take enough out of there to pay their increases so that their budget didn't go up. And they were not increases that the transfer station added on. They were increases that were for trucking, because the fuel has gone up and things like that. And that came to about $7,000, I believe. So we've taken $7,000 out of that money that we've saved off their budget, but then we're gonna ask for the budget flat.
So here's the transfer station, and the line item here went from the 70 to the 64,000. Some other things did go up, a couple salaries.
Yeah, there was a 1.7% increase for all employees.
Solid waste, demo debris, those went up. But overall, the budget for that warrant article 27 is flat.
Yeah, those are items we cannot do anything about them increasing.
Do we have a contract with that stuff, Ted?
Yeah, we do, right? In contract with all the trucking companies from the transfer station and everything? Yeah, we do, because the compactor employee used to be an employee of,
Well, I meant, that there I understand.
Yeah.
But I meant with the building debris and,
Solid waste and demo
metal.
debris.
yeah, everybody that hauls it, yeah, I believe we have 3-year contracts with them. Because I know, because I know, who is it that hauls the dumpster? We had to change the contract because
Would
they,
ask.
we had to change the contract because they had the employee that worked at the compactor was their employee, and then we were paying, additional. So we had to change the contract because we took that employee on as a town employee and take that money off of that contract. So I-
D&E. We have a
D&E,
contract
yeah,
with
D&E. So I know we do have contracts with D&E, so I'm assuming there's contracts with everybody else, but I'll find out.
Yeah, because
I don't know if we have a contract with anyone else, though. I think that this is done on a negotiation basis, that in the past, Bob or whoever's in charge checks the different ones and finds the one that is the best deal.
I mean, basically, the same people have been doing it for quite a few years.
Right.
And I don't know, the amount of money that we're talking about, which I'm not sure what it is without Bobby being here, but, I don't know if it'd be worth maybe, putting some of that stuff out to bid,
Well, I can ask Bob, because he, like Lorraine says, he is the one that handles it, but I know we've been sending Bob to a lot of schools,
Yeah.
and he's been meeting a lot of people in the industry, he's learned a lot about the industry, so I'm sure that with the way he's saving money up there, I'm sure that he's done everything he can to, to keep the price down, but I will find out for you.
but I know like the price of metal's been up there for quite a while now.
Yeah,
And we should be getting some serious money out of that, I would assume.
Yeah.
There was quite a bit of metal in one of those dumpsters up there.
Yeah, well, with the plastic and the tin cans and the cardboard, I'm sure that's not a big part of that $30,000. I'm sure it's probably a lot to do with the metal that's in that big
Sure.
dumpster, so.
Something to talk about for the future.
You're talking about Punchies?
Penske.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready to vote
I
on
think
this
you'll
one?
find that Bob does an excellent job, I think, at
No, I'm not saying he doesn't, I just think
making sure
that,
that the price is a fair one.
I certainly used to hear a lot of
Punchki's always been cheaper than
stuff about the transfer
others.
station, and I don't hear that stuff anymore,
Yep.
so that's a good thing. No news is usually good news.
No, I used to get phone calls at least a couple of times a week when I first started, and since Bob's taken over, I haven't gotten one complaint at all.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Article 6 as written. All in favor, so signify.
You want that terminology?
To approve
Approval of the
article as
written.
written, let's just make
Is that
sure
all
we
right?
vote to
Yeah.
authorize the Board of Selectmen.
I just wanted
I
to-
believe that
Yep.
doesn't
Approval of the
suggest any
article.
other phraseology, does it?
Approval of the article as written.
And I think there will be a couple of notable exceptions, but I think
Right.
for most of these, it would be to approve as written. Generally speaking, that's the motion on town floor as well, for most of these. And I know that last year, and we'll see this in the next one, I think, the motion was like ought to pass. Last year, there were a lot of those.
So, well, that's when they asked
But then
the
on the
question.
town floor, it was to approve as written, so let's go with whatever the motion typically is on town floor. Anyway, it was unanimous, 5-0 for this article, and that moves. So we move on. Article 6, I think this is going to be a housekeeping one.
Article 7.
7, excuse me, yes. Okay, Article 7. And incidentally, you all have a copy of the warrant here, just to kind of keep me honest. If whatever's up there does not agree with what you're seeing on your, or what I'm reading, by all means say so. I'm 99.3% sure that you will not find any differences, but if you do, I certainly want to know about it. Article 7, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to appropriate and expend monies from the undesignated fund balance with the advice of the Warrant and Finance Committee for the purchase of equipment or to use as they deem advisable to meet unanticipated expenses and emergencies that occur during fiscal year 2014, maximum expenditure of $15,000. Incidentally, I'll just read from the paper I have in front of me rather than the computer. That will do the job. Maximum expenditure of $15,000. And there are no recommendations at this time. Looking for a motion, please.
Recommend we approve the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of the article as written. On the floor for discussion. This one is a housekeeping article. It did change per legal advice in 2011, but what you see in front of you is exactly the same as what we had last year and is roughly what I would expect to see in future years, with the exception of last year the phraseology was select board, and this year the phraseology is board of selectmen, and you will see that one difference in many of these articles. But other than that, it is the same thing. And we're talking about advice of Warrant and Finance Committee because we are an advisory board. We are not authorized to consent to anything, simply to offer advice that may be taken or not. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of Article 7 as written. All in favor, so signify. 5-0. Unanimous in the affirmative. Article 8. Ooh, wrong one. Let's jump down to Article 8. I had put this here because last year, the law enforcement article went through and we actually ended up taking money from undesignated funds. So I figured that was the close, in order to balance last year's budget, that this Article 7 was the closest approximate to that. But it really has no bearing on this year, other than to say that this year, the $35,000 from last year and going back to $15,000 this year, the budget item is down 57% from Article 7. But it's flat from what was intended last year, 15, every year it's 15, at least the last few. Article 8, Acton Fire and Rescue Reimbursement. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to reimburse the members of the Acton Fire and Rescue for any national disaster or state of emergency or other emergency situation that exceeds 8 hours in duration at the same rates as established by Article 24 to be assigned at the fire chief's discretion. Firefighters or rescue members, same as laborer. Fire chief, same as road commissioners. Funds to come from the undesignated fund balance. Looking for a motion.
Move we approve the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of Article 8 as written. On the floor for discussion.
We've only had to use this once in the 3 years I've been in. There was, I can't remember what the storm was, but it happened, and the money didn't come in from FEMA until the next fiscal year. The storm probably happened, I think, when Dennis was in, and then we paid them in the next fiscal year when the money came in from FEMA. And we do have to pay them if FEMA pays us. If FEMA decides that they're going to pay for everybody that worked during the emergency, then we have to use that money to reimburse them. So this way, if we know we're going to get the money, we get them to pay when they do the work, and then when FEMA's money comes in, then we replace it back into the designated fund. But now we've started a fund just for the FEMA money, hoping that the next time it happens, we'll have money in the FEMA fund that we can take out, and we won't have to take it out of the undesignated fund. And we are in the middle of paperwork right now for a storm this year for the first time, after what happened down in New York with the snow and everything down there, FEMA now recognizes snow plowing as part of the emergency, so we put in paperwork for $20,000. I don't know how much we're gonna get, but we're entitled to $20,000 for, do you remember the name of the storm, the big one that went like?
It was Nemo.
Nemo, yeah.
And that ties in with the overdraft ratification that we're doing this year?
Well, in this case, the firefighters didn't have any time. That was all for snow plowing.
Yeah.
The firefighters weren't called out for anything. A lot of times in bad storms, they're called out because power lines are down or to get, the power companies out to someplace or something like that. But during Nemo, they didn't have any calls at all, even ambulance calls. So that was a quiet night or a quiet weekend for them. But the road commissioners were very busy that weekend because even the state stopped plowing it at 10 o'clock at night and didn't come back until 10 o'clock the next morning, so they had to plow 109 to get to their own roads during that storm.
And 109 is typically the
They
state.
did
It
have
is a
to-
state road.
They did have to plow 109, I remember that, to get to them, yeah.
Yeah.
And the rate of pay that these people will be receiving
State stuff
really is
now.
irrelevant,
It's
because it'd be all reimbursed from
Exactly, the
FEMA
money's gonna
anyway,
come from
so-
FEMA. If FEMA says no, that doesn't qualify when we do our initial paperwork, then we don't pay them. Once we get the okay from FEMA, that's when the check goes to the people that did it.
He's plowing to get to his, yes.
What about a fuel spill?
What about a fuel spill?
A fuel spill.
A fuel spill? What about it?
The reason that we went to it in Chester was because we had a tanker rollover. We had to have people on scene around the clock until it was cleaned up.
Well, that would qualify for that clause. or
Yeah, the
other emergency that
15,000
exceeds 8 hours.
emergency, yeah.
So does that, says a national disaster or state of emergency,
Or other emergency
or
situation. that
other
exceeds 8 hours a
emergency
day.
situation.
Right.
So, something like that, this would apply.
But they wouldn't get paid unless FEMA considered it a national, an emergency where they reimbursed us. Otherwise, they do it on their own. But in a case like that, if there's something, a fuel truck or something were to flip in Acton, we have joined with the county, and we've signed memorandum of understanding with them that anything like that, the county's gonna handle because they have the equipment to do it. And then all of the selectmen, all the road commissioners and the fire, the officers from the fire department all just recently took a FEMA course that qualifies us to get.
And in an oil spill, as I remember it, that one, the insurance company was the one that ended up paying the freight.
Right.
But you had to have this in place in order, number one, to pay the guys, and number two, to be authorized to get it back from whoever is footing the bill.
Right.
But the key here, though, is authorized to reimburse, not required to reimburse, because that reimbursement only happens if we get. if
Money from
FEMA
somebody else.
Kicks back, or somebody kicks
Yeah,
back.
I mean,
and-
like what he mentioned, if the insurance company pays us, then we would pay the fire
Okay.
department then.
Yeah.
So, with that understanding. So essentially, this is, Article 8 this year, Article 10 last year. The Article 24 that they're both citing is unchanged in terms of the number, and the dollar amounts per hour are unchanged. But as Dennis said, it only affects, it doesn't affect the town per se, because it only gets paid upon reimbursement, and it's a convenience to tie it to the road rates, which in theory are gonna float every once in a while, according to the economy. Okay, it's moved and seconded that we recommend approval of Article 8 as written. All in favor, so signify. Thank you, 5-0 in favor. Article 9, disposal of surplus equipment. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of surplus town-owned equipment having a value of less than or equal to $500, on such terms and conditions as they deem advisable, and to execute any necessary documents to accomplish said purpose. All equipment having a value of more than $500 shall be put out to public bid. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of Article 9 as written. On the floor for discussion. Article 9 is the same as last year, and again, 2 years ago, there were a number of articles that went through legal review, because that hadn't been done in a while, and this is one of the ones that upon legal review received a little bit of a facelift. So that affected 2011, it affected 2012, and essentially we're kind of rolling with the established legal phraseology. And it went through town meeting last year, and we're using the same article or the same phraseology this year, again, $500. And this is a housekeeping article. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 9 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0 to recommend approval of Article 9. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to put the funds received, excuse me one moment while I crank that up. To see if the town will vote to put the funds received from the sale of the tax-acquired property during the year 2013-2014 into the Capital Improvement Fund. For motion.
Move we approve the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 10 as written. On the floor for discussion.
Ted, this is just my opinion, that this ought to be written different. The reason being, I believe it should be the municipal capital improvement fund, because we have several capital improvement funds going,
We do?
right?
I think we just have this one that we opened last year. Or maybe it was the year before.
Well, let's see what we're rolling over in what is it, Article 37 maybe, 36?
Yeah, I don't think we have any capital improvement funds for, say, like transfer.
Well, we do have a fire department capital improvement and a road capital improvement.
Okay, the fire department capital improvement was to put the money for the fire truck in every year.
No, I appreciate that, Ted.
Yeah.
But,
And the dams.
and what I'm saying is that this money is your intention, at least I believe it's your intention.
It's to repair town buildings.
Exactly.
Town properties.
And that's why I say where we have, it isn't clear that you and I both know where it's going.
And an act and rec capital improvement.
Was Michelle called this, does she call this just a capital improvement fund?
And in Article 37, where you want to transfer the money, it's called the Capital Improvement Fund for Future Town Improvement Needs.
Okay.
I just,
I see what you're
being a
saying.
lawyer now, I guess.
Yeah, but we've had that article on since we had the whole warrant gone over, right, Paul?
I agree with you, Ted.
Yeah.
Right.
So the lawyer didn't change that, right?
And Article 36, which is really what it's talking about, rolling the various capital improvement fund, just calls it the capital improvement fund. So it's like basically the capital improvement fund, and then the other types of capital improvement funds. And I agree, that it'd be nice if there was an additional adjective in front of there so that it melds in the same format as all the other ones, but by the same token, I think it is unambiguous in calling it the capital improvement fund, but.
I mean, I make a big deal out of it,
Yep.
it's just
No, I
everything
see what
else
you're
is
saying.
very specifically where it goes to, and this one's kind of
So
general.
it can't be used for
Municipal
something
capital
else.
improvement fund, I
Yeah.
guess, would make perhaps more sense moving forward, not necessarily this year, but.
Well, then, yeah, I guess we own all the buildings anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Can't that be done on the floor?
You can't change the warrant article.
You can't change the
amounts
wording.
down, but you can't change the
you
wording
can-
of an article.
You can amend the wording.
I don't think so.
Well, we always say, amend the article to read whatever.
Yeah, but it depends also on what it's called in the budget book. So I think making any changes to it at this time without actually running it up the flagpole in terms of going and looking at what we actually call this thing behind the scenes, which quite possibly is the capital improvement fund,
Right.
would quite possibly be trading ambiguousness for something worse,
Well,
you know, actually
Article-
using a name that doesn't actually apply.
Article 37, to see if the town will vote to transfer up to 40,000 from the undesignated fund to the capital improvement fund.
But that's the end of the name of it.
That's
And then
right.
it's saying what it's
It's
for.
for funding.
Yes,
Capital improvement fund for future town improvement needs.
But that just,
That's what
that
the
is
money's
just stating
for.
what it means, what it's going for.
but that's not the name of the account. The name of the account, according to Article 36, is the capital improvement fund.
Now, how do we ask for it here?
Well, it's capital improvement fund. And as you said, there was one capital improvement fund, the other funds are designated.
There's like 5 of them that are for other departments.
So-
But I think, my impression of the way Article 37 reads is not that that's the that whole phrase
Yeah, it's not
is
the title of the fund.
account,
That's what we're
but it's-
saying we're gonna
it's-
use the money
We're gonna
for.
put it in that fund for this purpose.
Right.
That's my interpretation of it. But anyway, would we say that this is not specifically actionable at this time?
No, I agree, I just say I'd bring it up, and I think it should be,
Sure.
in the future,
And I will check on that.
a little clearer, that's all.
Yeah, because I
Municipal.
think you could amend the wording from the floor if, in fact, the legal beagles say you need to specify.
Yeah, as far as I know, you cannot change the wording of an article once you guys vote, we vote,
Right.
and then it goes to,
And-
you can only change the dollar amounts down, you can't even go up, so that's the only change you can make.
Right, but we haven't recommended yet, you haven't signed it
we
yet.
recommended.
But on the other, by the same token, I am certainly reluctant to,
Well, we're signing it
Make it
Thursday
worse.
night, so if we don't sign that one tonight, and then we have to go to the attorneys, I don't know if we'll get it in time for us to
Yeah.
sign on Thursday night.
probably not worth making a.
I would think if
making a big
anybody
fuss over it.
changed it, it'd be Michelle anyway.
Because her account is capital improvement
Yeah,
fund.
but certainly worth mentioning for future years. Any further discussion on this?
Yes. Is there gonna be money in that fund extra, Ted, to buy me some new glasses, 'cause I just broke them? I mean,
Have a
I am
spare
on,
pair.
I am on a town committee.
Well, I don't know if
How
that
is
would be,
that a
a-
capital expense, I want to know?
well, I don't know if it would be a capital
Is
improvement.
glasses on a town law?
Expensive for these.
Maybe if you can't read the warrant, we'll get through quicker.
Less argument.
I'm all for that. Any further discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 10 as written. All in favor, so signify. 5-0. Motion passes. Article 11. To see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell any tax-acquired property and to issue a quitclaim deed for the same. Sale to be by sealed bids or public auction, if to other than the owner of record at the time of foreclosure, and no selectman during the term of his or her office may acquire from the town any interest in real estate acquired by the town on, excuse me, on account of non-payment of taxes unless the owner of record at the time of foreclosure was the selectman or the son, daughter, spouse, or parent of the selectman. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of Article 11 as written. On the floor for discussion. Okay, Article 11 is a housekeeping article. It's been a different number in past years. 2 years ago, it went through a retool to result in the current form of this article. And that was carried forward to 2012. And it's proposed that we carry forward in 2013 the same way.
Do we receive any bids on that property?
What's that?
Do we receive any bids on
Not
that
yet.
property? No, I don't think we're going to. We'll have to put
It's
it out
on
again.
Thursday night.
Yeah, we'll have to go out again with a lower bid, a lower minimum.
Well, yeah, with low minimum.
Because I know there's two abutters that want it, but they weren't gonna pay the $10,000 minimum, so.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
So we'll just go for a lower minimum.
So this year, we had the possibility of selling a tax-acquired property, but it,
Oh, we still will. What we did is, we had a property last year on Loop Road, and it was a mobile home that was in terrible shape. The roof was gone for 3 years, and the gentleman was in the hospital, and nobody went into the building, so it was just completely filled with mold. It was terrible when I went in there. So we put that up for sale with a minimum bid of $10,000, and they had to remove the mobile home from the property, and an abutter bought that, so we got $10,000 last year. So we thought we would try with a minimum bid of $10,000 on this 1.5 acre lot on Salmon Falls River. But the bid's closed tomorrow, and Thursday we're supposed to open them, we haven't received any yet. So we'll probably drop it down to either $5,000 or what's owed in taxes and fees, and just get our money in, because we don't want to be holding real estate when we can get the funds. So we
How
should
big
get
a
that.
piece was it?
It's 1.5 acres. It's off the Hopper Road by the bridge that goes from Milton Mills into Acton, that dirt road that goes right along the river. It's in the back there. And then the NASA's own all that big acreage behind that 1.5 acre, and then there's somebody else that has a house there. So both the butters are interested in purchasing, but neither wanted to pay $10,000, so.
But it's not big enough.
Well, the road goes through it, and Kenny feels that possibly on the backside of the road, not the riverside, but the backside, there might be a big enough area to build, but we can't offer it as a buildable lot,
Yeah.
not knowing.
Right, because he's not gonna investigate it until
Dennis,
somebody comes in and
when I talked
asks
to
for a
him, Dennis
permit.
didn't think that it was buildable.
No, but I'm not code enforcement, so.
Well, he's not saying it is, he's saying it's, it's possible. So if somebody wanted to buy it and came in and wanted to go through the process of paying the fees and everything for Kenny to do all the research, he would do it and then say yes or no, it isn't, so they wouldn't have to buy it and then.
So really,
but
the
nobody
only,
came in.
at this point in time, the only people that would be interested in it would be an abutter.
Correct.
Well, it very well could be grandfathered too.
Well, the size of the lot is definitely grandfathered, it's just whether there's enough land, with all our new zoning, whether there's enough land far enough away from the Salmon Falls for them to build, I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta get a house and a septic system and a well on it.
Yeah, there's
And you got
nothing.
to- And you got to meet whatever the setback is from the river.
Right.
No.
And that's what he's not sure of. I mean, if you look at a map, he says maybe, but he's not gonna say yes until he actually goes and sees the site, and he's not gonna do that unless somebody pulls a permit, so.
But the person that owned it had put a camper trailer on it.
Yeah.
And used it for summer property, and the person could do that.
Yeah.
And so it has value, but, I don't think anyone wants to tie themselves to 10,000.
No.
any further discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 11 as written. All in favor, so signify. Thank you. 5-0. Article 12. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen, upon request of the treasurer, to allow the treasurer to waive foreclosure of the tax lien on a specified property for a specified year with reference to the tax lien certificate recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds in circumstances where the Board of Selectmen determine that it is in the best interest of the town of Acton to waive foreclosure. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of the article as written. On the floor for discussion.
A perfect example of why this is needed is the old tannery that used to be across the bridge on Milton Mills. After the tannery closed, some gentleman came in and got a large amount of money from the federal government and decided he was going to turn it into a power plant, and then he went bust and left. And then they found out, so Milton could have taken it then because the taxes weren't there, but then they found out that it was a toxic waste dump, that they had been burying hides for years and years there, and the ground was permeated with mercury. So if the town bought it, then they would be responsible for the cleanup. And then when we had that, what do they call it, that super cleanup, where we got billions of dollars to clean up toxic waste all over the country, I walked out of my house one day to go into work, and French Street had 15 brand-new tractor-trailer dump trucks parked all the way down French Street, and all these guys walking around in white suits and masks and everything else. They spent several months there digging up the ground to 10-foot level and hauling all of that out of there, putting new dirt in, and then they've dug wells and monitored it, and that's when they put the chain link fence up and everything. So that's actually probably federal government land now, instead of the town of Milton. But if the town of Milton had foreclosed on that, and the tannery was still standing then, they would have been stuck with all that cost, and it would have bankrupted the town.
And when I was a selectman in the early 80s, they had to change the state law in New Hampshire because that's what people were doing. If they had a toxic waste site, they just stopped paying their taxes, and the law said if you didn't pay your taxes for 3 years, the town must take it for back taxes. And the town said, we're not gonna take it over. So they changed the New Hampshire law because that's what people were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
When was it that they did that they came?
It was the
into-
early 80s, because I was still working at the shipyard, so 81, 82, something like that, because I was going to work at the shipyard. And then right after they did that, that's when the tannery came down. They tore the tannery down right after that. And when you drive by, if you cross the bridge from Fox's Ridge into Milton Mills, if you look on the left there, you'll see all these wellheads sticking up. They dug at different levels so that they can come in and monitor the groundwater there, because there's a huge aquifer there that goes right under the Salmon Falls River and everything, so, yeah.
But we had to do the same thing here in Acton because we own the lagoon areas. And so we
Oh,
had
on our
to-
side, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had to do the same thing. We waived foreclosure. We did not foreclose on it,
Yeah.
even though the taxes were past due.
Yeah.
We did not waive foreclosure because we didn't want to own it.
Right.
Because
have
we'd
that
had to pay to
responsibility.
clean it up. And the same thing, then, you know, eventually the federal government came in and cleaned it up.
Yeah, the ponds were actually on the Acton side,
Acton side.
and what they were doing is any hide that got ruined during the process, they just throw them out there, and then the snow would cover them, and it'd melt, and it just washed the stuff right down the Milton 3 ponds for years and years.
It was chromium and,
I would
They just
never-
cleaned up some more of those hides just a few years back.
Some
people-
Out there behind the cemetery,
Really?
The cemetery,
Oh, no.
going out the Branch Road,
oh, really?
left-hand side.
That makes-
Yeah,
They just dug that out just, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago.
oh, New Hampshire side.
And dug a whole bunch more hides out of that property out there.
Yeah, it was unbelievable what they were hauling out of there.
I'm sure that's one of the reasons that
In a couple movies.
Yeah,
the high place down in,
Somersworth.
Niece, as a matter of
you know,
fact.
don't sing up,
Well, went to
Bill.
school and grew up in Wilbraham.
the one that they moved up.
Oh, Prime Tanning?
Prime Tanner. I'm sure that's why that place hasn't, nobody's even looked at it.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, I'm sure they buried a lot of stuff too. It was it was allowed, it was acceptable, you know? I mean, that's how they did business. That's why, you know, all the paper mills used to dump into the rivers and everything else. They just wash it in the ocean, who cares?
Didn't we have a couple of properties this year that were waived because something, you know, the owner record came in and paid them after the fact, you know, after the deadline had passed?
Not waive we didn't waive foreclosure. What we did is we gave them an extension, because one property, it was a half-finished house, and he had a buyer. And the buyer actually came and paid before the day we were supposed to foreclose. So the buyer wanted the property bad enough that he came and gave us cash to pay all the back taxes so that the sale would go through. So we didn't waive anything. And then there was a family that owned several lots on the H Road, had owned them for many generations, and there was a trust involved, and family trusts sometimes don't work too well, I guess, because they were arguing and somebody didn't pay the tax bill, and finally somebody in the trust found out about it and came in and paid the tax bill. That person that paid it wasn't getting the letter saying that, you know, they had been paying the tax for 3 years, so they came in and straightened that out. So we did have 3 properties, well, actually 4, because it was 2 lots on the H road. We did think we were gonna have 4 properties, but the only one that we ended up foreclosing legally on is the one that's on the Salmon Falls River.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 12 as written. All in favor, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion passes.
Enjoy.
Oh, he's coming here to talk to, Kenny Joy's here.
Ah, okay. Ken, whenever you're ready.
That's all the good.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the next article here and hold you in on the next one. Okay, so Article 13, to see if the town will vote to have real estate and personal property taxes first payment come due on October 15, 2013, and the second payment on April 15, 2014.
Move approval
Motion
of
on
the
that.
article as written.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 13 as written. On the floor for discussion. This is another one of those housekeeping articles. Pretty much the only obligation here is to make sure we roll the dates from year to year, and we don't necessarily always do that. Sometimes we've had to fix these things on town floor. Hopefully not on our watch. So in this case, last year was October 16, 2012, and April 16, 2013, and we're talking about October 15, 2013, and April 15, 2014. And in both cases, we're talking Tuesday. And this is, again, a housekeeping article. When are your taxes going to be late? When do you have to have them in by? Any further discussion on this? All in favor of the motion for the committee to recommend approval of Article 13 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, motion passes. Okay, so we're going to jump forward now to Article 28, because we have a member of the community who's here to talk to us about that particular article, and we don't want to keep him cool on his heels. Actually, before we even talk about the specific article, on Article 28, we are talking about a flat gross budget from last year, $12,400. So Article 28, jump to that on my paper. We'll get a motion and we'll discuss.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. I will read the article and then we'll go act on the motion. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to raise $11,400 and appropriate up to $12,400 for operation of the Recreation Department. The remaining balance is to come from fees, donations, and revenues received by the Recreation Department. All monies received in excess of $12,400 shall go into the Acton Recreational Capital Improvement Account. Recreation Capital Improvement Account. And it's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 28 as written. On the floor for discussion. I want to point out that basically what we're talking about here, this is one of those net gross articles. The actual budget, from the way I interpret this, the actual operating budget of the Recreation Department is going to be somewhere between $11,400 and $12,400, depending on whether or not the department actually raises up to $1,000 for their own operational expenses. And anything in excess will go to the capital improvement, anything less, and their gross budget will actually be less than the $12,400. And that has changed slightly from last year. The gross budget is the same, the net budget to be raised by taxation is up by $600, and that's a reflection of an expected decrease in the fundraising for that account. The numbers do prove to the budget book. We're talking about, let's see, Department 11301, 11301, okay, right here. So, and then the budget book really only talks about the gross appropriation, not any nets. So we're really only talking about the 12.4 here, and it's the same as last year.
Ken,
Yes.
I'm the one that, brought up some issues about the rec, and most of them, as far as I'm concerned, are dead issues, after conversations amongst ourselves. But one thing that, I do have a concern about, and I want to know what your thoughts are on the matter. As you know, money's kind of tight, and participation is down, population's down, our kids' population's down. And it was my suggestion that for this 1 year, that rather than ask the taxpayers for any money, to transfer it from your capital reserve account, with the understanding, and I talked a little bit to Ted about this, and the other committee members, we really need a capital improvement committee in town. And I understand from the past that there's some things that you'd like to be able to do up there. And we'll put money away towards it slowly. But this year, you're gonna have like $5,000 left over in your account, unless something big comes up between now and the end of June.
Okay, the bottom line here, actually, I should probably point this out at the moment. I got an updated figures as of the 16th, which was, what, 5 days ago? And at that time, the operating budget balance was down from the 7,000 as of when we talked about it at the Finance Committee, or at the town workshop. As of 5 days ago, it was down to $3,000.58. And it was also determined that the capital improvement account had a balance of $31,638.64. So right now, that operating budget is $3,000.
Okay.
Or at least as of 5 days ago.
So well, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on, for this 1 year, funding the rec with the money that you have, transferring from your capital improvement fund, and still getting your 12,000, whatever it is you need. Times being what they are, and we know the taxes are going up because of the county, at least Ted seems to believe that they're gonna go up. That was just a thought, and I'd just like to know what you think about it.
I have a question. That was $5,000, so the new shed that you just bought, we took out of this year's budget instead of out of the capital improvement fund? Is that what happened? Is that why it's gone down to 3,000?
Yes.
Because the shed was just over 2,000, right?
Yep.
Okay, it was 5,000, but we just,
Well,
it's time for them to
yeah.
buy a shed, so.
Because they can't spend out of the capital improvement, we'll have to vote of the people anyway. too.
Okay, I did, okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
which, by the way, is a nice addition up there, I think.
I got a pen I could borrow.
yeah.
I got some broken glasses if you need them.
So did you have more to add, Ted?
No, I just wanted to ask that, no?
Well, it does explain the jump.
Right. Yeah, because I remember signing the warrant for it last week,
Yeah.
or the week before,
You put it in,
make
what,
the purchase.
Saturday?
Huh?
Saturday you guys put it in, wasn't it?
We got in the gravel Saturday, and the shed came this morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I see Dave Winter was up there.
Yeah, he did
Some
the,
stuff.
he did the gravel
Yeah.
work for us, and we purchased a shed from a company in, I believe it's Alfred
Yeah,
Mountain.
right on 111, yeah.
Yes, that's where we
Yeah.
got the shed.
Where the tractor
David,
dealership be.
David donated his stuff, didn't he?
Yes, no, he didn't charge us anything.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
he's been, he's done things like that in the past, and Jenna Robichaux has actually been behind trying to get this to happen.
Sure.
And she asked him, and he agreed.
And this is for you guys to make more money, you're gonna sell hot dogs and things there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's to make more money. It's to offer a
Gonna try.
service. Well, you know, basketball this year, I want to say we pulled in $150.
Yeah.
One of the things I have missed a little bit with numbers being down is just that, I think when some of the rest of you were in the rec, Friday night
Big.
was acting. And, not running concessions is a big reason why it's not anymore.
Right.
Well, and our numbers are down. But I'd rather see a program like concessions be to, give some fairly inexpensive food. We can make some money. I think we made $150 this year. It was very little, but it was a learning year for us. We hadn't done it in a couple of years. But that's probably what will happen as well. I don't know that we'll bring in a lot of money.
I do admit, going to games, that I was kind of disappointed not having the chance to get something to eat.
Yeah, well, this year we had it. So we had hot dogs this year and pizza.
Good.
To speak to your question, I wouldn't be opposed to an idea like that. I'm hesitant because I don't know what it will cost. We've been able to work with Mouse Valley Little League to try to make the rec field more of a home base for some of the baseball programs. But I don't know if you've been by there on a Saturday morning, our parking lot is a dangerous situation.
No.
So we've got that other gate. So it was about 3 years ago now. In fact, Scott had come down and done some work on the infield for us. And we got talking about, why not use the other gate to put in a parking lot, a good parking lot, and this side will keep, this side of the field, we will keep for kids. Kids, we've got the basketball hoops there. We'd love to put in a swing set. We had somebody bring in some dirt. It was a thrown together, sandbox. We'd love to have that available on this side of the field and a parking lot on the other end. So we got a bunch of volunteers together. I went and cut down a bunch of trees. And then I got a lot of stories about, I should talk to Walter Moss. And, Dean Knight's got in trouble down there. He was laying hay and trying to keep water from going into Wilson, and the DEP won't allow it. So I spoke with a gentleman named Chris Copey with the DEP and sent him some pictures. But it never happened. It never came out, partially because I never put it out to bid, and partially because people said, you can't put it out to bid, it's not gonna happen, you can't do anything down there. So I kind of dropped the ball with it. I have been in contact with him again, and that's our biggest goal. I don't know if anybody here has experience in that area, but do you have any idea what it would cost to put in a gravel driveway on that other end of the field?
I would talk to Scott or David or somebody like that.
Okay.
Are there wetland concerns in that part of the field?
So that's what people say. Now, if you look on the maps, further out, where we built the pond, if you get on the back side of the pond, it kind of goes uphill out behind the pond, but off to the left of it, I believe that is the area that's the wetlands. So that is a concern. And it's so strong in the minds of people that it's just every time I try it, you can't do it. And I've called Chris and asked him, I need an answer to, can we do this? Will you please come to the field? And my hopes are that he will. So that's my only reservation. I don't want, this fund, to be honest, this 31,000 number, I've heard, it was back, are you still a selectman?
No.
Okay. It was back when you and Larissa and Tony were selectmen. You guys had set a few things up for us, and at the time we had discussions, should the extra money or the unspent money go back into the, just the town
Right.
account. And I think it was Larissa who finally got this so that an actual capital improvement
Right.
account existed. So it's been since then. And then there was talk of spending some of that money, and at the time, it wasn't close to 31,000.
Right.
It was, I would say, around 12. But money had been raised. A lot of things that people had purchased. You guys probably have some of those old Acton sweatshirts, with the blue letters, or Mark Camary used to do those.
Signs, the signs.
Yes.
Advertisements.
The raffles,
Yeah.
So a lot of that money that was coming in wasn't actually raised by taxation, which is why we were fighting so hard to try to, no, this can't happen. And then when the capital improvement account happened, that was good, but I honestly, I had no idea. And I'm not a money guy. We've had John, we've had Scarpelli, who is very good, Talbot Ricard now, who is very good. But we've also had a transition of a few treasurers, and just getting that number You know, when you meet once a month, it seemed impossible. So the fact that I was able to get this number was awesome. So I'm not opposed to an idea like that. You know, but I'm a little concerned because I do feel like we can do something with that. I feel like with the Mousom Valley coming over and using our fields for baseball season, with a concession stand, I think we can get some more momentum. And that's my only hesitation about using that account.
Ted,
Yeah.
did you people call the DEP? They should be
Did you ever
able
talk to
to
Kenny Paul
send
about this?
somebody down.
I did talk to Ken.
And what did he say? Because he's pretty familiar with all that stuff and then calls DEP when he feels that it's beyond him, but he,
I believe it was Ken who turned me to DEP.
okay.
But I'm willing to certainly go that route again.
Yeah, I would start with Kenny first, and then if he says that we need to go to DEP, then we can make a call.
You got two people to deal with.
I think he told me to go to DEP.
You got the DEP, and then you got the other, Vigilant, Wilson Lake Association to deal with.
Right.
Have to be very,
Yeah,
they're very,
Protective of their lake.
yeah.
yes,
Well, of course, what happened, and Dean was selectman at that
Yep.
time, and they were doing some work up there, and the first thing you know, there was muddy water going into Wilson Lake.
right.
And of course, the phone call came in to me, and so I got a hold of Dean. Dean got back there, but before Dean got there, the DEP was there.
It's already there.
And Dean had to spend all day sandbagging,
Yeah,
you know, to stop the flow that was going into Mousom Lake, into Wilson Lake.
yeah, they're very, there's somebody watching every minute, that's why we say that.
Which is not a
So-
bad thing.
No, no,
It's
it's not.
protected
Probably so,
lakes.
yeah.
It's a beautiful lake.
Right, but as I said, that you do have the Lake Association that is gonna be watching, you know, and they're ready for.
Well, and, I mean, I want to say it was that night, we're down there cutting down trees. And, you know, they're small, it has all been cut down before, it's all small growth, so it's been clear before. So I just got volunteers and we just went to it, and I think it was that night, I'm getting a phone call, and I should
I know
talk to
this.
Walter Moss, and
I mean,
But I
just to
know,
talk to somebody, I know that Scott's pretty familiar with what he can do and can't do around lakes and stuff. He deals with
Okay.
that a lot.
That's right,
so-
too, he's certified, right?
Yeah.
And through the course of
Yeah, he
Kenny.
is, so,
Okay.
I mean.
I
you
know
could
I
ask him.
had a same thing when I had the boatyard. Had a vigilant neighbor, and I was at a public meeting put on by the DEP, and one of the things they said was that if you felt you had a problem, you could call up and they would come down and look at the situation and advise you what to do, but they would not fine you or, you know, stop the enforcement thing. So we called up, and this man and woman from the DEP showed up. And when the guy got out of the car, he said to the woman, "What are we here for?" He said, "This is the cleanest boatyard I've ever seen. Why are we here?" And the woman said, "He asked for an inspection. His neighbors sending letters to the DEP complaining constantly, and he wants to know what you want to do." And they made a couple of recommendations, and we did them, but it stopped the problem. And I think that either Kenny as the code enforcement officer or the Board of Selectmen should be able to request that somebody come down. You can run by them what you would like to do, and see, they're gonna either say yes or no, or they're going to recommend that maybe you do it differently.
Have you already had your meeting for May? Or how often do you guys meet?
Once a month, third Wednesday.
Once a month, okay.
Actually,
Why don't you
Yes.
talk to Scott first, and then if Scott can't answer it at your next meeting, Bill Shields is your liaison, he comes to all your meetings.
he does.
Yeah, just tell him what we discussed here tonight, and he'll take care of it from there, but let's not bring DEP in until we're sure that we have to.
Okay.
Okay, so, now hearing what he said about the budget, a thought that's come to me is, what if we were to fund just 5,000 this year? Because that's what their budget is before they bought the shed. And then if they do go over, then they could tap into their capital improvement fund. But if they can keep the budget at 5,000, then we don't have to go for 11,000.
Where does the 11.4 come into play?
Instead of raising 11.4, we raise 5. And that would be their operating budget, because that's what they spent this year.
Is it?
Or
They must have
did they
started out at
spend
least 11.4.
we spent
or-
7.4.
You said, okay, you spent 7.4.
Or 8.4, actually.
Right, because we brought
Because
it
you're
down.
down to 3,000.
Right,
I mean,
but
you
the
had to start
2,000
at least 11.4.
The 2,000 was not part of the operating budget, that was a purchase of a shed, and that's not gonna happen every year, so. And you've paid all your fees and
Understood.
everything for this year, for this fiscal year, as far as sport, teams and fields and all that?
There's a slight chance. We use Seacoast Property Management. We pay them in 2 installments to mow and take care of the property. That is about $3,500
For the whole year or for each payment?
the whole year.
For the whole year.
And we break it up twice, and I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me. There's a chance that we still have a 1750, is that half of 3,500? There's a chance we still have a 1750 to write, so I can't promise that.
Oh,
but-
so you would end up using almost all of your budget then?
Kenny, do you guys still do, I know that when Cody was involved, we would sponsor a team, our
Yeah.
company would, and then we'd have a sign up there. It was really, actually, it really worked out really nice
Yeah.
for everybody involved. Do you guys still do that?
No,
No?
and the reason is because we no longer have our own baseball program.
Okay.
We are active and
Yeah.
involved with Mousom Valley. Mousom Valley Little League is no longer, like when Cody was in, he did coach pitch, he did T-ball, and that was all Acton Rec.
Yeah. It was
Mousom
awesome.
Valley now goes from 4 years old to 12 years old. So it's a giant pool.
And that's why you went, that's probably why you go a little further now for games, right, Dennis? You were talking about going
Going to Arundel.
Arundel. Is that because
For
you're all in a
practices
pool
even.
now?
Well, okay, now that is soccer season. So Dennis, here's something else I'd like, if you guys are interested, I'd like
Yes.
to make you aware. So soccer, we don't even have a program anymore. Soccer is dead.
No kidding.
It died last year. It was dying the year before. We now have, within our reach, quality football programs.
Really?
And field hockey programs, which are taking a lot of our kids down at the SSYA. Okay, they're good programs, but they're taking especially our athletes. Sanford soccer has gotten huge, and people in our community are willing to drive to Sanford to take part in that.
Yep.
We can't run soccer. Last year, in fact, this year, if you guys want, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but you could like the Acton Rec. This year, we're actually telling families, if you want to be involved this fall, we tried to run soccer, we couldn't. If you want to be involved, here are all these other opportunities. We're trying to get people in the fall. But that's why. So soccer, what we did last year, I spoke to the woman who was in charge of the soccer program. Her name is Julie Tanner. She's in charge of Shapley Rec. And they said, yeah, we're having a hard time finding kids. And I said, well, we have some families in Acton. We may have had total 8 kids, maybe 10 from Acton, actually play soccer last year.
I see I didn't recognize very many faces.
No, and Shapley's not having it either. We're down in volunteers, we're down in kids. Basketball is solid. It's our best program. We're consistent on that. But soccer has It's fallen by the wayside
Where do you play that, at the Acton School?
at the rec field.
No
Oh.
basketball.
Oh, basketball, I'm
Basketball,
sorry, yes,
yeah.
yes, at the Acton School.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Ken goes up and shovels off the basketball court. Gets a little chilly at night, but now they got
Well,
hot
it could be
dogs.
summer basketball, right?
So is there a lot of, I'm just interested, because Code played football since, gosh, I think he was 5.
Yep,
But we used to take him over to Wakefield.
okay,
And he played there for a while before he went into the Sanford.
okay.
And he ended up being the quarterback down there for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious about this. How many kids do we have from Acton, would you say, are participating in early football like that?
Oh, goodness. My guess would be a dozen.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Field hockey is growing. There's probably 8 kids playing field hockey. Sanford has just allowed our girls, because the SSYA stops at 6th grade, Sanford has opened up the junior high to kids from
Excellent.
Acton to be able to go down there. So 7th and 8th grade, they're allowed to go play field hockey.
Because that's big in high school also. So that's
Huge,
fantastic
huge,
that they
yeah.
get to do that.
But the downside is that all these programs are, they're pulling our kids in other
Yeah.
directions, and we just have so few to work with.
Yeah.
It was all that being said, Ken.
Please.
Let me ask you this. It seems like, you're fighting a losing battle here, trying to, unless we get a bunch
Sure
of kids.
feels like it.
With that being said, do you think it's worth it, with us not having a soccer program? Kids turn into field hockey and football, like you say. And, do you think it's worth it to plan on spending, $10 or $20 or $30,000 on a parking place up there, for something that very could easily die in the next 2 or 3 years or 5 years?
That's a good question. I would say that I am hopeful.
Yeah, doesn't it come in
Nothing wrong with
waves?
that.
That's, I wouldn't begrudge you for saying
Yeah.
that's a foolish decision.
I'm not saying that, I just,
I am very hopeful that this younger group is gonna come up. I've heard there are 2 kindergartens next year. I don't know if it, is it
There was 2 this year.
this year?
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know
so,
how many they have for next year.
so I'm just hopeful that it's coming back.
And don't you think it comes in waves as far as participation, kids?
think it's
I mean, just 'cause-
cyclical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because it's not right now doesn't mean it won't be down the road.
no, I appreciate that, but the fact of when you first was getting involved, we had 300 kids down in the school down here, now you're over 200. So you just can't get the kids because they don't exist.
Yeah.
And unless, Percy starts having a bunch of kids, the chances of our population of children isn't going up too much.
Yep. Yeah, I won't disagree with your logic. So let me throw this out there. So some of these things are, like that 31,000 number, it is surprising to me. You will notice, well, or you can notice, so we've taken soccer. I'm still hoping some parent, like, I got some complaints last year about soccer. And I said, great, complain, that's not how I initially took it. But I said, great, these people are gonna get fired up. Let's let them run soccer.
Yeah.
Let's have them come in, do it.
Didn't happen, did it, Ken?
And they can't, there's not enough. But that was my hope, maybe this is gonna fire people up, let's get active, let's get an active team going. But it just didn't happen. Anyways, back to my point. So this is fairly surprising to me. I wonder, and I don't want to waste the town's money, and I don't want to have the town putting away money and just sitting on it. That's not my goal. We're starting to transition. We've taken our soccer budget and made it very small, and we're starting to do other programs, like Funtown. So we're going in again with Shapley to Funtown this year. They're giving us a great deal. Our families can go there for half price. Last year was huge. We had huge numbers. We did a bowling day down in Sanford. So we're starting to change it up a little bit, finding other opportunities to get people in our community, active with their kids. There is a little bit of communication between us and the PTG, trying to talk about things like, did you guys hear about the tubing day that happened this year over at Moose Mountain?
Oh, nice.
Or even a program like like the day that they were able to have those bouncy houses in the school. I'd like to see, I don't want to see the rec go away. I'd like to see us have someone in town who's trying to get families, hey, let's do some stuff, let's get
Encourage
together,
families,
let's have some fun.
Certainly, there needs to be
Let's be
something for the youth to do.
Yeah,
This is a small town,
Absolutely.
there's very little to do, anything that can fire up the kids in a positive way and get them together and get them exercising and whatever else, cannot be a bad thing.
yeah.
I think this is true, and the federal government, one of the big drives now is to make activities for kids. The kids need to be involved in activities.
Well, and the next question is, are there any grant funds available, maybe, to do stuff like
Well,
that?
the next question is, how many more years is Ken gonna be able to keep, doing this where he gets completely burnt out?
I'm
Are
close.
we in negative?
Long time.
How many years have we been doing it?
It may be that they have to look at a different direction, as
How old's
Ken
your
said.
youngest?
It may be they have to,
8.
okay, the soccer program doesn't make it, but you're gonna move in a different
Stuff.
direction to involve the kids. Well, that's the important thing.
Has anybody ever considered a sailing program?
Sailing.
Not that I've heard. I have had petitions to do programs for elderly people, to get elderly people active. We have had a petition to try to get a Zumba class going. I know the jokes, right? But we've had these types of people asking about, look, our community's getting older. Shouldn't the rec reflect that? And my answer has been, it's not where I am, but I volunteer my time. Come on board. You want to set up programs for the elderly to get active and dance, and come on over. Let's make that part of the rec too, but we just need people. You can't, I'm not going to put my time and energy into that right now. It's just not where I am. I'm sorry, but, well, I don't need to be sorry, but my focus is the kids side. But other programs have been brought to us, not specifically sailing though.
Well, I was just wondering, because I was seeing in the paper the other day, they have a dinghy program in Portland, and it's huge now.
Really?
So, I don't know.
You're talking about where the kids build the dinghies and then they go out and learn how to sail?
No, they, I don't know, I can't remember what dinghy they're using.
Oh, a dinghy.
Yeah, you can sail one.
Can you?
Yeah.
And, the idea is, as you say, find something that the kids are interested in, especially in the summer. And with all the lakes we have, you would almost think that, somebody might be interested.
One thing that you mentioned was that a lot of or I'm not sure of how much, the capital improvement was donations and things like that. And it makes me a little uncomfortable using donations
Well,
to
the thing
fund
is
the
with that,
program.
Nancy, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like, if you go and you're gonna have a program and you charge so much for admission and so much for the food and this and that, when you put all the money together, who's to say that the capital improvement money isn't from the taxpayers and the donations are what paid for the programs?
Most of it is from the
Right,
taxpayers.
no,
You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like,
I appreciate that, but I wouldn't want to use it, draw on it more than maybe a one-time thing, because,
and with what Ken said, as far as I'm concerned, I've dropped everything else about the wreck. I can drop that one too,
I wonder,
maybe I'm too early.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'll ask anyways. So maybe, I guess, of course, you guys are gonna do what you want, but maybe you could give me another year. Say, to either make this happen or not. If it does, we'll do it. If not, then maybe we need to start using it to pay for our own budget. So I'm a little hesitant, and maybe we could get another year. That would be my request. and I'll be here, you know, I'm
Fine
not
with
going
me,
anywhere,
Ken.
my youngest is 8, I've still got a few years left.
I don't know if you know the reason that this is actually being brought up this year is because the county is going from a calendar year to a fiscal year.
Okay,
So we have to pay a year and a half county taxes this year. So we have an additional $150,000 or
111, I thought.
$133,000 in our budget that wasn't there. So even though every department stayed flat, we still have an increase of $133,000. And that's why every department had to go through this year. And I understand that we didn't let you know about that Saturday meeting, and I apologize for that. But this is what we did with every department that day. So it's not just the rec that everybody's been, that we're picking on, so.
yeah,
If you have a big increase in kids at the field, you're going to need more parking. Am I correct?
so if you go down there, I'm sorry, that long answer, if you go down there on a Saturday now, there's not enough parking. You've got a game going on at 9 o'clock, that's two teams with a dozen kids each.
Yeah.
So that's almost, let's say that's 20 cars,
Yeah.
okay? And then at 10 o'clock, you have 2 more families coming in. We've got cars on 109.
Yeah.
And we've got cars parking where kids are going from, so I would say that it's already unsafe.
The problem already exists.
Yes,
And whatever you decide to do and whatever the program does, you need to get a reading from the DEP as to what you can do with that piece of property. No matter what you do.
That's certainly the next step. I mean,
okay, so I've dropped the ball on that, I really have, and that's kind of why I'm asking for another year. I'll go to Scott and say,
No,
Scott, you're certified, what can we do?
I think it's really important.
Ken is being paid a salary to be the code enforcement officer. He certainly should be able to go up there and sit down with you, decide what needs to be done, who needs to be notified, and get a decision. What are we paying him for?
I think it's really important, I just gotta say this, I had a son that, sports kept him on the straight and narrow with school. So I just wanna put it out there that it's really important for our kids to have this outlet. I mean, there's so many kids that need the sports, and when they go down into Sanford, they are already, even Cody, he was an athlete, and he still felt, you know, they don't feel like they're coming in there on the same playing ground. And he had to work really hard to get where he did. And Ryan too, I mean, there was a few of them that really worked really hard and they were in there and they got in their varsity sports. But there's so many of our kids that were great athletes that maybe didn't even try out or whatever, because somehow they didn't have the confidence or whatever it was. So I think that it's important to keep as many sports as we can here for these kids, so that when they do go to the bigger school, that they feel like they have a chance and they try out and they get on these teams, because it keeps kids, I can say from my own experience, it keeps them on the straight and narrow. They have to keep a certain grade to be able to play in these sports. They have to sign contracts to stay away from the parties. And, I mean, knock on wood, my child is graduating in a couple weeks, and it really has helped him to do well down there. So I think it's important for these kids to have this. And thank you, Kenny, for doing it. It's a huge, huge benefit to our community. It really is. And to the kids.
Thank you.
well, I would say that you're a classic example of one person can make a difference. You have made a huge difference, and you're continuing to do that. And, you know, we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't always get a chance to say it, but...
Yep, I appreciate it, thank you.
And Paul knows better than anybody, it's tough to get volunteers, right, Paul?
What's a volunteer?
I think I've seen Paul with a glove on before.
No, I'm trying to get people to volunteer to be
Two
on
decades ago.
the Warrant and Finance with him.
Oh,
He rewrote the ordinance last year so that we could have alternates, so that we'd have extra people, so if somebody had a reason that they couldn't come, we'd have an alternate, but we haven't been able to fill the alternate
Oh,
position
we wouldn't
since
be
we
making
did it.
quorum if we hadn't done that, so, you know, we'll call it a marginal success story. Question, the capital improvement account, you were saying that maybe some of it was direct donations, but we know that this article is written to say that, you know, basically anything in addition to, say, $1,000 of fundraising is gonna go into the capital improvement. And I'm getting the impression that that has not, certainly not in recent memory, that's just not a number that's attainable, correct? I mean,
How much went in each year?
yeah, how did that number come about through, say, the doings of this particular article? And the other question, the other part of that is, so,
Well, Ken,
we look at that, and we see that it started off at the 12.4, you know, for this year. Now, we look at a roads article, a roads budget, and we see that it's increased by the amount it was rolled over from a previous year. Now, last year, we rolled over all the Act and Rec funds. So the fact that it's not reflected there implies that there were no extra funds last year, even in the regular budget, it went down to 0, which sounds a little unlikely. So, what is your recollection of, say, what was left last year? Like, why don't we see what was left last year starting this year?
That would be in the town report, right? What was left?
Yeah, but it should be.
Do you have one?
In the auditor's report.
Oh, actually, excuse me, let me just look in the expense thing here, because this is where it was actually located. 113.
That should tell you exactly how much was left.
Yep, okay.
I thought you were asking about where the figure came from. The figure comes from you submitting a budget, correct?
Right.
The
Okay,
12.4?
but now that I think of it, yeah, that extra number was actually in the expense report, not in, yeah, okay, so it just shows the 12.4. It does not start out at a higher than 12.4, like, if you look at the roads, excuse me,
Oh, that's
winter and summer maintenance budgets.
Yeah, but see,
you look
that's
at the
different.
expense report, and because those are rolled too, and you
Right.
see the increase to begin the year.
But that's different than the rec committee, because the roads budgets are voted to go back into the same account, so they would have an increase for the next year, because they're getting their new budget and the old one.
Yes.
But the rec department, it's not going back into their budget, it's going into their fund. So if you look at the fund and see how much the fund went up last year,
We voted to roll recreation department funds, not appropriate, but carry forward recreation department funds. And the implication is that it's both their working budget and the capital account. But I don't see that there,
That
which is
does-
a little
And
strange.
that's because it's not. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
Paul, but the auditor will tell you it's two different things. You got
So the
you got-
intent of that is that they're talking about the capital account, even
Right.
though they don't state that.
Right.
So
They have their 12.4, 12.5, whatever it
Yeah.
is that they want.
Yeah.
And whatever's not spent out of that,
would lapse.
it lapses into the, it goes
Okay,
into the
so
capital
I would
improvement.
certainly say that.
And they start out with zero.
That article then, because that's not been my impression, should actually say, you know, rec department capital improvement account, like it says all the other capital improvement accounts. Why do we say funds? Because that's kind of a nebulous thing. Anyway, we're not quite at that article yet, but, okay, so we start off at that. My impression from this discussion is that, and because there was an extra expense this year, is that normally we don't necessarily get too close to the 11.4 even in actual expenditures for the course of the year. So, obviously, we could go in an extreme in one direction and extreme in the other direction. What I potentially propose here is just sort of looking at Article 2000, in the 2012, Article 32, and perhaps going for raising 10.8 and not increasing it by 600. Because I think, based on this discussion, that would probably be more than enough for running the show for a year, regardless of how much you actually fundraise. And I just want to make sure that that's not an onerous thing, you know, we're not here to browbeat, merely to suggest reasonable alternatives. Does that sound reasonable?
It does sound very reasonable.
And not talking about capital accounts at this time.
Yep, it does sound reasonable. my hesitation has been, you know what, that family's gonna come forward and they're gonna take soccer under their wing. I don't want them to have nothing. Or this person's gonna come up with that idea and we're gonna roll with it. And so that is my hesitation for always, and it's just me being, it's just being hopeful. But that
So
is
you're
more
saying
than
that
reasonable.
recently,
Yes. Yeah.
the budget needs have contracted because of basically the lack of participation in the kids, and those programs don't really exist in the form that they have in perhaps recent memory. Is that-
Specifically soccer, that is dead on, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so for that, pretty much that reason alone, the budget the budget needs have condensed from previous years, where if this was proposed, say, when the soccer program was in place.
2 years ago.
That would have been bad. It
Yes.
would not have been tenable. It
That would have
not
hurt
worked.
us, yes. But with the lapse of soccer last year,
Yeah,
that's, I think, part of the reason why you've seen us go in some other directions. Yes, so you're correct.
Do you
Okay.
think that the rec's goal should be, I'm just curious, to kind of like get the kids ready for the sports arena in high school? Or,
So that's what I would like for my own children.
Yeah.
I would like the rec to offer that. That's what I want for them. It's not what it's not what the community at large is necessarily looking for. I think we are looking for good programs where our kids can come out and have fun on a Saturday,
Yep.
learn a game, learn a sport. You know, when I look at Cody and Brandon and Ryan
all those guys, yeah.
and that group that came through, I think of Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah.
I think of kids that were driven and had their parents there at every turn, on the committees. That has lapsed some. So as much as I do want that, and I want that to be available to our kids who want to go and play those sports, I think our actual mission is more about getting our community involved than, you know, we have, look, even Russ Wilkinson, remember? That guy never played a sport in his life.
Yeah.
But he coached for 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's more what we have.
Yeah. And that's a great thing. I mean, if you can just get families together, participating, like you said, having Saturdays together with dad there, maybe dad works all week, and that's when dad's there watching the kids play. I mean, that's a great thing,
Yeah.
you know?
And on the field and snagging balls and getting involved, yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, that's,
And in
There's a
the
little bit of hope
process-
there.
Yeah, because in the process, it will build the kids, the child, they learn a sport, like you said, and it will build their self-esteem, so hopefully when they do get to high school, they go for it, and they at least try out and, give
You
it a
know,
shot.
I teach high school in New Hampshire, at Kingswood in Wolfboro. And the number one thing is, anyone can tell you this, is extracurricular activities. That's what
Absolutely.
keeps our kids out of the
Absolutely.
dangerous situations that they sometimes get
That's what the
into.
colleges look
It's what keeps
for,
them
too.
healthy, it's
Yes.
extracurricular
They
activities.
do, they look for the well-rounded, yep.
They don't want somebody that just has all A's and everything and never socializes. They want somebody that's into all
Yeah.
those activities.
Yep.
That's true.
okay, so I have one, what I think is my final question, and I'd like to come at this, the last one that I asked at a slightly different angle. The premise for we're talking about the same appropriating budget, which according to my understanding is based on, essentially a full set of fundraising that will make up the difference between the raised and appropriated, okay? So last year, there was a $400 difference between the two, $1,000?
Last year, we'd actually budgeted more.
Yeah.
Because, we had planned on more coming in, but when
Right.
soccer went belly up, we couldn't collect money.
Okay, so in 2012, actually, the current budget year, which is when this thing came in, the 10,008 budget. So right now, you're working on a 10.8 budget, effectively. If you do no fundraising, you're working on a 10.8 budget
Okay,
this year.
okay.
Okay, that's my interpretation. So would the current year budget, with the soccer program, would that have worked?
If you had the soccer program.
Yes.
So for next year, even if, so we're assuming no fundraising in 212, so assuming no fundraising in 2013, would the same budget conceivably work even if you bring the soccer program back into force? It sounds like
It
we're
would, if we leave
apples to
out.
apples, I think.
Yep, it would. Again, the only other addition that we've proposed this year, I don't know if you can see it there, is we took some of that soccer money and turned it into a category that we called community sponsorship. We allocated $850 towards that to do programs like the Fun Town program, like bowling, and like other ideas. So yes, we
Okay, so
could
that's an
work with that
alternate
budget.
program instead of soccer right now, that if you then try to do soccer in addition to it, that would then cause the budget crunch. is what
Yeah,
you're
but I'm already on Facebook telling parents, I don't see soccer happening. If you want to do it,
Right.
step up. But here's what Sanford is offering right now. Go find these sports, because they sign up. They sign up right now. You gotta sign up in April and
For the
May for
fall?
programs that start in the fall.
They travel, don't they, with soccer? They go all over?
I think Sanford soccer is just Shaw Field, but
Really?
there might be other things.
I know the Camaries
but
have
it-
done traveling.
Yeah, it's that Sanford soccer, it's that SSYA football,
Yeah.
and SSYA field hockey. So if you go on our page right now, you'll see we're advocating to families, get involved now, because we can't promise you a program. We are in contact with Shapley again this year. Hopefully those, I don't know, is Jess,
My daughter.
your daughter? Okay, all right. So when Jess's son and my son played soccer on the same team last year, so that's going to still be available. I'm not taking him to Sanford to play soccer, I'm not taking him to play football. We're going to jump in with Shapley Rec again this year. So we will still have a rec program, it's just mostly run, in fact, we didn't contribute $1 to it last year, other than the registration for our kids. But we didn't, the town didn't put any money towards the program. But that will still be available this year. So we still have an opportunity for a local, but we did travel, you're right, to Arundel, and there was one other field we traveled to as well, yeah. So, sorry.
Okay, so wrapping a big bow around this thing.
Yep.
What you're saying, and I think it's a fairly consistent story at this point, is that you're looking for a year to figure out whether that soccer program is truly demised or whether it can come back, in addition to funding the new programs of the alternate type that you were talking about. Is that a reasonable statement?
No.
Okay.
I think soccer is dead.
Okay.
What I was hoping for a year to do, because this is crunch time, is to look into, can we get that other parking lot built? Can we leave the capital improvement fund account?
Right, I don't think we're talking about the capital improvement account at this time. Certainly,
Okay.
the motion on the floor has nothing to do with the capital improvement
Okay,
account.
okay.
From my perspective, at least, I'm strictly talking about the operating budget and what you reasonably need to, not to be at your last dollar and wondering where that next buck is gonna come from, but certainly within reasonable set of ambition about what you wanna do next year to have the funds to do that. What's the number that we're talking about, assuming no fundraising?
We can run on 10-8.
Okay, and that includes basically your next year wish list, correct?
Yes.
So you're saying if we raise 10.8
So if we go back to what
and
we said last year,
appropriate up to
12.5, 12.4,
12.4.
like we said last year,
Yeah.
theoretically. So that seems reasonable. It doesn't seem like, you're robbing from one area to go to another area that's enough to work with.
Yes, it is.
And of course, next year will be a different thing. We'll, quite possibly have similar discussions with different outcome, but
Okay.
does that way we would not need to increase the raise, the raise amount by 600 would certainly help with a flat budget thing, and, but I want to make sure certainly that it's a reasonable thing to do.
It certainly is.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, so at this point, what I would suggest, because it is a substantially similar thing to the original motion, is that, we amend the motion on the floor to change that dollar amount
I can,
from 11.4 to the 10.8.
can I withdraw my motion, or?
It's on the floor. I think I just assume, and I don't think I'm going into illegalities here, by just change, because it's substantially the same thing, but just changing a piece of it, that you would amend your motion to change the 11.4 to 10.8.
Okay,
If that's in fact what I think we're
The motion was,
leading.
the motion was to approve the article
article
as
is
written,
written.
now you're changing the
Yeah.
bylaw.
Okay, so
You
why don't we do that?
You could vote on that, vote it down. and
Yeah,
then-
so why don't we just do that?
it
If we
down.
all are in agreement to allow because it's not her motion anymore, it's in the group, that if we allow her to retract that motion, we're all in agreement on that?
so retract.
Okay, so the motion is rescinded. We're ready for another motion here.
Right, okay, I would move approval of the article with, the change of the town will vote to raise, 10,800 and appropriate up to 12,400.
With all the remainder being the
All the
same.
remainder being the same.
Okay, and all money's been received, so that last part would be the same as well. Okay, so, is there a second on that?
Yeah, seconded.
Okay, so let me just make a notation here, so we're talking 10-8.
Anytime you need any numbers on your account, you just call Michelle. And she's
She-
here Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays all day, so.
I have
She can
been in
email it to
communication
me.
with her over the last month,
Yeah.
and she is phenomenal.
Yeah, she is.
We worked with Vicky, we worked with,
Sure.
Sherry, and Michelle she's good at email, she's quick with it.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend that the article be passed with the following change, or approved with the following change, that the $11,400 amount be changed to $10,800 to match what was done last year. So essentially the same as last year. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve as amended to 10-8, or as changed to 10-8, so signify. Thank you. That motion passes.
Paul, I need a break.
Yes, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
10 minutes? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. We're gonna be
Very
going.
highly appreciated. Welcome back.
There are so
Okay, Article 14.
programs to take them.
Really?
To see what interest the town will vote to charge on all taxes after October 15, 2013, and April 15, 2014. Maximum rate of interest allowed is 7% per annum.
So Finance Committee recommends the rate of 7% per annum.
Is that a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Finance Committee recommend a rate of 7% per annum. On the floor for discussion.
This is set by the state, so there isn't really much
Well,
discussion, I guess,
maximum, I mean,
right?
we could certainly go lower than that, but,
I think the article's fine as written.
yep,
We have $500,000 in back due taxes for this year alone, so
Right.
we need to charge an interest rate that's gonna get people to pay their taxes on time.
yep. Not that I'm suggesting changing. Okay, so in past years, I mean, going back to 2010, it's been 7%. And that's what we're suggesting here. Any further discussion? Oh, and the dates match to what's stated in Article 13. So Article 13 was the date after which you will be late, and this is the interest rate that you will pay thereafter.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend for Article 14 that the interest rate be 7% per annum. All in favor, so signify. Thank you. 5-0. Article 15. To see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes at 3% pursuant to 36 MRSA 506-A.
I move we accept the article as written.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded that the Warrant and Finance Committee recommend for Article 15 that we accept the article as written, that we recommend accepting the article as written. Is there any discussion? And this ties to the 7% interest rate in Article 14. Basically, it's the other way around. If we are rebating taxes, abated taxes, we're actually paying this interest rate to the folks that we abate taxes to. And this actually came in as a result of legal advice 2 years ago. It went through unchanged last year and unchanged again this year.
The lawyers wrote the article, but it actually came because of the reeval. O'Donnell's told us that we were supposed to be paying interest back. And I think, what'd you say, we had only 10 since the abatement that we had to do reimbursements on? Yeah, we've only had 10 people since the abatement that came in, the reeval came in for abatements, and they told us that we had to pay interest on any money that we held, especially where it took them almost a whole year before they got through the reeval and then they got their money back. So that's why we had to add that article.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend accepting Article 15 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries. Article 16. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept the prepayment of taxes before the tax commitment.
Make a motion to approve the article as written.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend accepting Article 16 as written. Is there any discussion? And this is a housekeeping article, same as in prior years, and this one isn't even the target of legal advice recently.
No, this actually does happen more often than you think, of people that are going to Florida want to come in and pay their taxes, or going out of state for the winter, want to come in and pay their taxes before they leave, and we haven't set the tax rate yet. So we give them an estimated tax, and then they pay it, and then they go to Florida. Then when they come back, if they're late, they're not talking about huge dollar amounts, might be, or we might end up owing them money.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend acceptance as written, so signify. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
I know, it's cold.
Number 17. Gentlemen. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to make application for and execute any documents related to any grant or donation, to accept any such grants or donations or any fees, and appropriate such funds for the designated use.
Make a motion to accept the article 17 as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend accepting Article 17 as written. On the floor for discussion. And this is another housekeeping article. There was a change in 2011. Prior to that, it was a bit simpler, but the intent is the same. And this is the same as last year. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend accepting Article 17 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, motion carries. Article 18. To see if the town will vote to appropriate all the funds received from the state for snowmobile registration to snowmobile clubs for maintaining their snowmobile trails, on condition that those trails be open to the public for outdoor recreation purposes at no charge, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into agreement with said clubs under such terms and conditions as they may deem advisable for that purpose.
I'll make a motion, we accept Article 18 is written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approving or accepting Article 18 as written. And by the way, Lorraine, if I sort of use a different word like accept or approve, but the rest of it is the same, I certainly intend that we make this, that it read the same on the minutes, if you'd be so kind. At least those two words, anyway.
I have one question.
On the floor for discussion, yes.
It says on condition that those trails be open to the public for outdoor recreation purposes at no charge. Is that winter
Yes,
recreation or all year round?
The
I
trails?
would say all year round, but I think it was aimed specifically at cross-country skiers.
Of course, the reason I'm asking this is there are lots of people who don't mind snowmobiles running over their land, but they don't want ATVs
Yeah.
because they tear the ground up so bad.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
And it, I don't know whether this is the wording that every town uses.
No, actually, we changed this when the attorney came in.
Right, well, I mean, originally it was this.
Because,
Snowmobile trail.
Right, and the legal advice, it's exactly according to the legal advice. But, I mean, it is an interesting point that conceivably, somebody could use a four-wheeler on those trails in the summer according to this article, because
No,
those are trails
I
open
don't
for the
think so,
public.
Paul.
well, that's what I'm asking. Is
They-
It
it,
says
be
the
stretching their
snowmobile
point,
clubs
certainly.
for maintaining their snowmobile trails.
It's just,
are we saying that trails winter only? Or are we saying the trails are year-round?
No,
I
no,
would
we're
say
using the
it's winter.
snowmobile money
Yeah.
that comes from snowmobile
I
registrations
understand.
to just help the snowmobile clubs groom the snow so that the snowmobiles can ride on them. They don't do anything else, and we don't give any money for anything else.
Certainly, the spirit is snowmobile.
But it says snowmobile trails, and the
Right.
snowmobiles don't run in the summer,
Right,
so they don't have any trails in the summer.
Okay.
yeah.
And, yeah.
I know people landowners who don't have any problem with the snowmobiles, but they definitely don't want the ATVs because of the mess they make.
They do, they tear up the trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they come on your land and cut down bushes and,
I don't see that
like
we can
that.
do anything at this point, but I
But it would sort
do
of make
think
sense to throw the
that
word
the selectmen
snowmobile out
should
there
ask
somehow.
legal counsel about this.
Well, it has nothing to do with the summertime anyway, so, and the snowmobile trails are organized by the snowmobile clubs. They get permission from the landowners to connect land so that they can ride their snowmobile from one place to another. So all of that is done by the snowmobile club. All
Right.
we're doing is giving the money from the registrations to the snowmobile club to help maintain the track in the
Well,
wintertime.
certainly the context is absolutely winter recreation, snowmobile
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, and all we're doing is we're making sure that whoever we give that money to allows the residents of Acton to use the snowmobile on their trails.
Yeah, but the condition, it says here, on condition that those trails be open to the public for outdoor rec purposes. So, I mean, it could be any outdoor rec purposes,
But it's not a snowmobile trail in the summer.
What kind of trail is it then?
Well, it's
Still a
not
trail.
snowmobile trail.
Some of those trails aren't open to people in the summer because it's private, most of them are on private land.
And they certainly could have rocks, they could have anything that that are not a problem with a foot and a half of snow, but if yeah.
tell me about it.
Point taken, that could be picked apart conceivably. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion that the committee recommend approving Article 18 as written, so signify. Thank you. Article 19. Okay, so Article 19 is a monetary item. It is going up 11.6% from last year, and the lion's share, if actually not more so, because I think it would actually be going down if not for this, is the business with the county taxes, which are in here.
Excuse me.
Actually, that's an interesting question, because there's a separate thing. The county taxes, how could that possibly be actually in general, no, it isn't. Okay, so this one actually has nothing to do with county taxes, correct?
Right.
11.6, okay. So we'll take a look at what the differences are, but anyway, it's going up 11.6, 11.6%. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise $647,623 and appropriate $671,736 for general government, Department 102, to be expended as follows. And I will, for the rest of this, I will simply say, there you go, right up there.
Governing bodies up.
I make a motion to accept Article 19 is written.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend accepting Article 19 as written. Okay, so let's do a quick perusal of where things are changing. So Article 19 actually is Department 102. So some things have been moved, certainly. So the municipal management figure now includes $55,384 to cover the fourth year of the 5-year bond, covered in Article 15. And that's for the reval.
Right.
Previously, that was in the assessment area, and now it's in municipal management. The other things that have been moved here are the fire truck, and I think the window, let's see, down in here somewhere, right here. So we have the reval loan has been moved from assessment, so that's $51,000. We have the window loan that was moved in here, $5,100, and the fire truck has been moved in here, $56,000. So collectively, that's your 11% increase. And we also have the contract deputy here that's been moved in. That was voted in at a special town meeting last fall. So all of that reflects an increase. So none of it really is, if you were to eliminate those special items that were moved in here, you'd be talking about a flat or a decreased budget. And the other thing that's worthy of mention here is the fact that this is written as a net/gross budget. So we're talking about raising $647,623. These numbers that you see here are the net numbers. This $350, $325 for municipal management is a net figure that is explained here. Essentially, the $22,113 from the Fire Department Capital Improvement Fund and $2,000 from the from cable revenues. That specific one here offsets part of the town clerk's salary for jobs specifically or duties specifically related to cable. And this is specifically having to do with paying part of the fire department, the fire truck loan from the capital improvement fund.
That's what was left from the money we've been raising for the last 3 years, the $50,000, 2 years in a row, and the $75,000. The town gave us last year permission to spend that money on the fire truck. When the final bid came in, that $22,000 was left. So since the town has already approved us spending it on the fire truck, we're putting it forward towards the payment in order to keep the tax rate down by that $22,000.
So that brings this account down to zero.
Correct.
And then in a couple of articles, you're going to see more money going into it for the coming fiscal year.
Yeah.
And these numbers do prove to the best of my knowledge, having stared at it for any number of times and comparing to the budget book. But, so we're talking about Article 19. Let's see, 19 is right here. So here's all the 19 items. Those all prove to the individual dollar amounts, and what I've got for town government here is 671,736. And that's your gross figure, with any luck. 671,736 is the appropriation, and then you subtract from that these two figures, you get your 647,623. Try it at home. You should find that it comes out. And as I said, I have done that to my satisfaction, that it does prove out. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion that the committee recommend approving Article 19 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries. Article 20, this is going down 33.1%. Last year was 15,108, this year is 10,108, and we see the article here. And essentially, we're going down in the general assistance. So last year was 15,000 for general assistance, this year it's 10,000, and we're talking about Article 20, right here. And that's the budget book. And general assistance is going down essentially because of less of a demand, which I'm sure has something to do with how it's administered.
Well, there's three things that have made a difference. One is the state has changed the requirements for them to get it. It's made it more difficult. Two is we changed the hours. It used to be anytime you wanted, that the town hall was open, you can come in and see Lorraine, and she would give general assistance to whoever was appropriate. And now we've changed it to just Thursday nights. And then the third thing is we started, anybody that's healthy enough to work, we started making them work and would not give them general assistance a second time until they completed the hours necessary. Most of the people that have done that have ended up working at a transfer station, and it's based on, what, $10 an hour until they pay it back?
$10 an hour, okay.
So whatever she gives them, she tells them how many hours they have to work at the transfer station before they can come back and get more money.
So those that are on disabilities, we cannot make work, and we don't make them work. But if they're not on disability, then we expect them to work to pay for whatever assistance they're having. Also, the food pantry has been very good this year, and we haven't, I don't think I've given more than 2 or 3 vouchers for food. They've been able to supplement enough through the food pantry that we haven't, so most everything for general assistance has been oil, but the oil, surprisingly, was not anywhere near as much this year as we had last year. But I think that makes a difference, because I think if they know they can come in anytime, they do come in anytime, but limiting their hours to Thursday between 4 and 7 means they have got to make a concerted effort to come here. And they don't do it. Sometimes I get phone calls, say, well, I'll be in, and I don't see them. So I think that this has been good, limiting it to, now they can, for an emergency, they can come anytime, because the law allows this. For an emergency, they can call me at home, because this is what the law says. But
So,
this is
okay,
for-
amount of oil, right.
That's right, no oil, and it's 10 below, you know. But for just general assistance, I need help with my oil this month, or I need help with my rent this month, they have to come in on Thursday between 4 and 7. And this has really brought the numbers down, hasn't it, Ted?
From 25,000 2 years ago to 10,000 this year. And I don't think we even spent 10,000 this year, did we?
No,
No.
doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And this is the month of May. I don't know if I had more than 1 or 2 in April, and I haven't had anyone this month.
I make a motion to accept Article 20 as written.
And yes, I did neglect to get those. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Holly first. It's been moved and seconded to recommend we accept article, or that we approve?
We accept
What
Article.
what phraseology have I been using, the accept or approve?
Accept.
Accept?
What's that?
What have you been?
What have I been saying?
Approve as written.
We're
For the
gonna
most part.
approve as written.
Approve? Can we go with approve?
Sure, sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Okay?
what have I got here, back at the first?
Yeah, I just want to be consistent.
I've got approve of the article, approval of the article.
Yeah, that's
as
right.
Okay,
written.
good, thank you. We'll see if I can
Just put the
actually
words
use
in my
that.
mouth, Lorraine, that's fine.
We're going to craft it after the fact, okay.
Well,
It's
we
been moved and
talked about it
seconded that we
before.
recommend approval of Article 20 as written. All in favor, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, motion carries. Article 21. Okay, and that's going up 1.5%. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $157,997 for public safety, Department 104, to be expended as follows. And again, I call your attention to what's on the screen here. Take a look at those numbers. And actually, since I've already read it, let's go with the motions at this point, and then I'll,
I make a motion for the approval of Article 21 as written.
Second.
thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend approval of Article 21 as written. On the floor for discussion. Okay, so the only difference between what was discussed in the original town budgetary workshop was a decrease of $896 because there were some stipends that were penciled in for the department head and the supervisor of the fire department, and the fire chief requested that those be dropped back to current year levels because his guys couldn't get that same increase. So he wanted to kind of,
Well, what it was he was going to get the 1.7 cost of living, a 1.7% cost of living increase like all other town employees, but because the firefighters are on a stipend, they were not going to get the 1.7, so the chief chose not to accept any increases in anybody's salary or anybody's pay.
so that's Article 21. Somewhere in here, okay. 21 is the 157,997. And the item in question was the department head and the supervisor, which originally had a 1.7s penciled in there. So again, let's see, 157,997. 157,997. And the individual items do prove as well. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 21 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries.
Don't do that, Nancy.
Oh, I know.
22.
It's 9 o'clock.
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $10,800 to purchase SCBA, self-contained breathing equipment for the fire department.
I make a motion to the approval of Article 22 as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 22 as written. It's on the floor for discussion. Okay, so this is actually similar to last year. This is actually part of the public safety budget, but this particular item has been moved to a separate warrant article for sort of a sink or swim on its own. Last year, there was the first year that we had this article, and so the self-contained breathing apparatus is under sort of a continual rotation to replace outmoded, either unsafe, I think that last year it started as unsafe equipment that had to be rotated out by law. But this year, there's also the additional element of a change in design, and we need to keep pace with what other towns have for equipment, so that we can share that equipment more readily, and replenish our self-contained equipment at the site of a fire, using other departments' air pumps.
At the last meeting, you had asked about the new fire truck and whether it would have a compressor to fill these tanks.
Yes.
I asked the question, and it will not. A compressor truck is a separate piece of fire equipment.
Really?
And the only one that has one is Sanford. But with these new tanks, if they're on a fire with Sanford, Sanford could fill the tanks for them. If they're not on a fire with Sanford, they're on with Shapley or Wakefield or Lebanon, they can swap tanks. So if their tanks are empty, then they can get a tank from one of the other fire departments that'll hook to their masks. So that's why they need to do it again.
So it's a whole separate truck?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, it's a cascade system. It goes to a compressor, and then there's a series of bottles, so that, because when you go from 0 to, their tanks are 2,400, my scuba tanks are 3,000. You go to from 0 to 3,000 pounds of pressure, they have a series of tanks that are at different pressures, so you just keep changing valves, so that the first tank goes from, say, 0 to 500, and the next one goes from 500 to 1,000, and it works up. So you need an actual truck to carry all that stuff to have one on site. And the town is too small to need something like that.
Very interesting. That's what
Sort
makes
of
it
like
worth getting out of bed in the
decompression.
morning. You learn something new every day.
Sort of like decompression?
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely decompresses the things on the truck. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 22 as written, so signify. Thank you. Article 23. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $18,276 to add to the capital improvement fund for the fire department toward the purchase of a new fire truck. Looking for a motion on that.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 23 as written. On the floor for discussion.
What this is for is, when we had the special town meeting to buy the fire truck, we told the town that we would keep the $75,000 towards a new fire truck in the budget. And then what we did was take the amount out for the loan from that $75,000, and we're only going to raise the $18,276 this year and next year. And then our thought was, and we'll go back to the town at the time, our thought was, once the reeval was done and we didn't have that payment anymore, then we'd go back to putting $75,000 into the fire truck. But we've got a year and a half left on the reeval, so that at that time we'll figure out whether we're going to go add, the difference to keep doing the $75,000, go back to the $50,000, since hopefully it'll be several years before we're going to need another fire truck. And then maybe use that money from reeval to put money towards a future reeval, because, that was $212,000, and we need to do it every so many years. We don't want to have to go back and borrow it again next time, or put it into other things. So we'll figure out exactly what we're going to do with that money at that time. But for the next 2 years, it'll be the difference between the loan payment on the fire truck and $75,000 will be going towards a new fire truck.
So these numbers actually come into play twice. One is the computation that Ted was just talking about, the 75 annual to fire truck, the commitment to make that happen, minus the current year's loan payment, and that's the 18,276 that you see up here. And then the second piece of it is looking at municipal management, which we've already talked about. The coming year's loan payment is the 56,724, that same number, minus the 22,113, which was the net from the fire department capital improvement fund, and that was the 34,611 that was going to be coming from taxation in that article. So somehow or other, it all proves it. Excuse me, all proves out. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, or recommend approval of Article 23 as written, so signify. Thank you. It's unanimous. The motion carries. So Article 24, Holly, I'm thinking that there's going to be at least 4, possibly 5 articles that you're probably going to need to abstain from.
Okay.
And I'm thinking probably 24, 25, 26, and arguably, the thing about carrying forward, what the heck is the Article 36, because it does talk about roads. Do you have an opinion on that one, Ted, about the 36?
Yeah, we have enough, I would just have her do that. I remember when Chip Vanell was on Warrant and Finance, his wife was working as a special ed director. He had to abstain for anything that had to do with school.
Right, but on 36, it,
It was special ed.
Yeah, she's special.
yeah, but, so 36 does mention, it's not specifically a dollar amount thing, but it does mention the roads.
Yeah,
So
so-
would that be under that same umbrella? I mean,
Yeah, I would just say-
appearance of propriety is what we're going for.
Yeah,
here,
just to
so.
be safe, I would just say,
Sure,
just
okay.
have her don't vote on anything
All right.
that mentions roads.
Cool. All right, so that's where we're going. All right, so Article 24. To see if the town will vote to pay wages and equipment for repair and maintenance of public ways according to the following schedule. And once again, I will take the liberty of not reading this whole article. I will simply point out a couple of notable things here, and I think some of it is actually written here. There's actually only 2 changes from last year, and that has to do with the winter road maintenance. The 2-wheel drive is going from 4570 to 5020, an increase of, I think, 450. And the same increase for the next line item, which is the 4-wheel drive, 26,000 pounds or over. It's going from 4815 to 5265. So you're looking at these same items last year. You have the old dollar amount and the new dollar amount. Other than that, the whole article is written exactly the same way. And we have been using this, I think a couple of years ago, we were doing this whole state rate thing, but the last 3 years, we've been actually spelling out what the pay rates are because they're more in keeping with the equipment that we have.
Right. The state didn't have a lot of equipment that our road commissioners have, so there was no fee for that, so they were kind of guessing back and forth, so we went back to just doing for the equipment that we have. And those increases do not increase the budget, it'll be a cost out of those accounts when they're using those vehicles, but the budget itself is stayed flat.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
And here I go neglecting that again. Okay, thank you. It's been moved and, actually moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 24 as written. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor, so signify. And we have an abstention, we do not have in the negative. Thank you. So it's 4 in approval and 1 abstention because Holly's husband is a road commissioner. One, 1. But the motion carries. Article 25. Appropriation for Public Works. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $427,421 for Public Works, Department 105, to be expended as follows. These numbers are exactly the same as last year.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 25 as written. Discussion.
The stockpile sand, right, Holly? Mm-hmm. Okay. The road commissioners did ask us to go up on the stockpile by $25,000 this year because that's about what we went over this year, last year, and the year before. but the year before that, we had excess. So we didn't feel with this year with the taxes that we should ask for more money because we are allowed to go over that budget in emergencies.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense to have another $25,000 added on to the tax this year. So where we can use the money from the undesignated fund to pay for that and then go to the town in June to ask for approval of that expenditure, which we are doing this year.
Ted, it looks to me, I went down the other day and I looked, it looks to me that down to the school property, that there's approximately 1,000 yards of material down there that we've paid to have screened.
Right.
We can have that processed for what they don't use much screen material on the roads anymore. Usually they try to use crushed. You can get that crushed for $5, $6 a yard, and that stuff's been sitting there for quite a while. And I would think it'd be in the best interest of the town to get somebody in there to process that, clean that mess up down there, reclaim that, what's left down there, before we get in a heap of trouble with DEP. I think we have $25,000 in that gravel account, and if we spent $5,000 getting that crushed so the road commissioners can use it, and that'd be better than paying $10 or $12 a yard where they're buying it from now, and clean that place up and get the heck out of there, and maybe another year, if they wanted to do it, I would think it would make sense to take the remainder $10,000, $15,000 that's left in that account and put it into a road capital improvement account.
No, you're right, because there's another reason too. The accountants have been telling us for the last 3 years that we need to get that off of the,
Off the books.
off the books, yeah. Because every year it comes up that we've got, I think it's $25,000 worth of gravel, and then the $25,000 worth of cash from however that was done when they were getting that money out of there. So, yeah, we are looking at doing something there. We want to get somebody to come in, crush it up to something that's usable, which will use that money, and it'll get all of that out of there, so that's just completely wiped off the books, and then the remainder, we can come in and ask to put into a capital
Right,
improvement.
because they're really pushing a limit down there with the wetlands, doing any more digging anyway.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the first year I came in, that we had to go down and do a cleanup down there.
Yes.
Because the DEP had found something down there, and,
I
we
pushed
haven't
the
had
limits.
anything since, but I remember we had to do some kind of cleanup down there. I think there was like an oil spill, but
Yeah.
it wasn't really a spill, it was like a truck that leaked or something.
Right.
Yeah, and then there was, I don't know, was there the plastic stuff by the wetlands or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that had deteriorated and had to be changed. So, yeah, we need to do it for several reasons, to keep the DEP off our back, and also to get it off of the books, because it's not done right as far as the auditors are concerned. They keep carrying it and they keep telling us, so we're hoping to get that taken care of.
Yeah, that'd be good, because, I mean, we pushed the limits down there when we put the playground and stuff like that in there, and then we went in and hauled some more gravel out of there afterwards.
Excuse me.
And so the only thing we can look forward in the future is a problem.
Yes, and the DEP is not getting any easier.
No?
That's just a suggestion for the,
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve that?
yep.
Okay,
We
good.
do.
Just haven't voted.
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion on this? And the numbers on that, Article 25 here is, this is flat. No further discussion, okay, so all in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 25 as written, so signify. Thank you. And there is one abstention, so 4-0 with one abstention, for the same reason.
Okay.
And the motion carries. Article 26.
Just kidding.
Holly, if you want to take a jog around the block, this would probably be the time to do it.
That was Nancy that one, not me.
Yes,
Oh, my son.
Maybe you could do that in proxy or something.
yes, that would be nice.
Okay, Article 26, to see if the town will vote to raise $111,984 and appropriate $180,000 for road surfacing. The remaining balance is to come from the Road Capital Improvement Fund. Funds to be expended as follows: $90,000 for District 1, $90,000 for District 2. Do we have a motion?
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 26 as written. On the floor.
The capital improvement fund, Ted, where's that money come from?
Europe funds?
Okay,
It actually, 2 years ago, it actually said that.
okay, I just wanted to make sure, I thought that's what it was,
Yeah, the first year I came in, when we were going to file for the Europe funds, we had to backtrack on what the money was actually spent on, and if you don't, if you don't show them what you spent it on, then they could take it away from you. It's about $64,000 a year, I believe, that we get in the Europe funds. So we started putting the Europe funds into that, and then Matt, and that's when we opened up to have the road surfacing in there again, because there wasn't any road surfacing. So the next year, we used the Europe funds, and then the town approved to add the additional to give them each $90,000. So we're like a year behind with the Europe funds. The Europe funds are already here. That'll go into next year's budget, and then September, we show them what we spent it all on this current year, what we spent on for road improvement. And we just send that right in, and that check comes, it goes in for next summer when we have the town meeting. So we're like a year ahead with that $65,000 now.
So at the point now where if the state changes their mind, says we're not gonna give it to you anymore, you've at least got 1 year in the bag.
Right, if we don't get the Europe funds this year, we'll know enough next year not to do the $180,000, or tell the town that we're gonna do the $180,000, but we want the town to appropriate the whole $180,000. So yeah, so we'll know a year ahead of time. There has been no talk about touching the Europe funds. I mean, other funding for the town, yes, but the Europe funds have not been involved as of yet, but who knows with everything else they're taking away from us.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 26 as written, so signify. Thank you. 4-0 with 1 abstention. And if, I'm not calling for a nay vote with the understanding that it is an abstention, and if it's not, certainly say, hey, that's not my intent. But that is my understanding at this time. Okay, Article 27. And that did carry the motion. Article 27 is 0 as well, 0 increase. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $272,288 for the transfer station, Public Works, Department 105-40.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 27 as written. On the floor for discussion. Not much to talk about on this one. The budget is flat. They do, as we talked about earlier tonight, they do a pretty darn good job out there at Public Works and Transfer Station. Article 27. Somewhere in here. Right there. 272-288. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 27 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries. Okay, Article 28, we've already covered. Article 29 is a 0 difference from last year. Article 29, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $250 for the Conservation Committee, Department 106-01.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 29 as written. On the floor for discussion. So 10601, Article 29. Right there. And same as last year. Ted, is there a plan of any kind to perhaps come up with a job description or a fence around what the Conservation Committee does as compared to, say, what the cemeteries department does?
We don't-
Is there overlap there? Because I know at times in the past, they've sort of been combined, and
Yeah, they still are.
I'm not
We don't have-
totally clear on what each one of them does.
We don't have two different committees. We have a conservation committee, and they do the cemeteries, and they've been doing some research into veterans, recording, what veterans are in our cemeteries, things like that.
They do have a description, Joe, of what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and that's all included in that, so.
I could get that for you if you want, Paul.
That would be good.
Back when Joe Young and, when they started that, Joe Young and Dean Knight and Dick Neal, I guess, was in. Joe was a big pusher of that Conservation Committee, remember that, Lorraine?
Well, yes, but, the Conservation Committee as it exists does not exist as
I appreciate that.
it doesn't match the guidelines for what a Conservation Committee is supposed to do.
Right.
This committee has chosen to be more historic,
Yeah.
and that is basically what they have aimed their things at, and that's satisfactory, I think, to the town.
So conservation of memory.
Originally, they were a Conservation Recreation Committee.
That's what started.
And-
at one time.
That's right.
And then they
And then we had
changed
to dissolve that one.
because of the rec department, and they wanted to
Yep.
make sure there was a separation. So that's when we had the recreation department and the conservation department.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 29 as written, so signify. Thank you. Unanimous, and the motion carries. Article 30. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $447,956 for county tax, Department 108-51. Looking for motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 30 as written. On the floor for discussion. So obviously, and we've talked about it earlier tonight and in the prior workshops, the county is changing its fiscal year. We are now, for our current fiscal year, paying 18 months' worth of county taxes, which is creating a bit of an issue, creating some opportunities for creative finance, shall we say, in the town to try to make sure that it doesn't impact the tax rate any more than it needs to. So that's where you come up with the gross versus net on Article 19 to try to offset some of that. So it's actually a 42% increase. It appears that the county tax rate has gone down, presumably because of increased valuation in the county itself. And next year, we're going back to a 12-month period.
Correct.
So the issue that we're encountering this year is a one-time only kind of a thing.
I think it's pretty darn sad that we gotta pay a tax on something that we got no say about. I think we had a Revolutionary War back a couple 300 years ago or something, get away from that.
Yeah, we throw a lot of boxes in the harbor for that.
Yeah.
Well, we could have a say on it. Last year, I had to go and nominate Chip Vanel. He's on the Warrant and Finance Committee for the county. And we have several openings on that committee, and nobody goes in to apply for it. They have a caucus every year. Somebody from the town has to go in and nominate. And so that night, in our caucus, which is Acton, Shapley, I don't know, there's 3 or 4 towns that are in our, so we get representatives. Well, Chip and I were the only ones there. I nominated Chip, he seconded it, and he got onto the committee. But we could have had 3 or 4 more people on that Warrant and Finance Committee if somebody wanted to go and volunteer. And it's just like this one, they just have a budget once a year that they go and work so many months on, and then they vote it in, and then it goes to the county commissioner. So if somebody wants to get involved in the county, just go to their website and find out. We can get people nominated to be on that Warrant and Finance Committee.
To go along with what you said though, Ted.
Yeah.
Chip is a member of the Warrant and Finance Committee.
Right.
And I know Chip well enough to know that he goes to all the meetings.
Yep.
But when this change came down, that the county commissioners decided to do, Chip Vanel didn't know anything about it till he came to one of your selectmen's meeting when you announced that they were gonna do it. So, this is my point.
They did it in between the budget season is probably why he didn't know, because they weren't meeting yet.
And that's what I mean now.
Yeah, so
They
they
make
did
these
vote up, yeah.
decisions that cost us all this money, and the darn county tax, it just drives me crazy, that's all. I don't think it's right.
Any further discussion on Article 30? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 30 as written, so signify. Thank you.
I meant to vote no on that, but that's all right.
Unanimous?
I voted yes anyway.
Why don't you volunteer?
Yes,
Article
Or
31.
run for county commissioner.
Don't get ranting too much, then you don't vote the way you want to.
yeah.
Article 31 is flat from last year as well. Article 31,
Deputy Dan already stopped me once, I'm not gonna be over there, commissioner there in charge of him over there now.
to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $538 for planning and development to be expended as forester's stipend, Department 107-05. Looking for motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend Article 30, approval of Article 31 as written. On the floor for discussion. And
Yeah,
31, yes.
Why is it that planning and development is paying the foresters?
Don't know why that has a name. I think Vicky stuck that name on it back when she was
I
here.
think you're right, Lorraine.
And it doesn't really reflect what it's about. I don't know why I can't just say forester stipend.
Yeah.
You know, that's
and
more,
I-
that's what it is. That's the only thing we pay out of it.
Yeah, and so why don't we say
Tradition.
Going back at least a few years.
something or other? I mean, planning and development is certainly not what he does.
No.
I don't think he develops anything. He may.
Well, he develops a forest plan. You have to have a plan for your forest, what you're gonna do
Yeah,
when you're
that's
gonna
kind
cut.
of a stretch, though, to call this planning and development.
Planning and development sounds to be like the planning board.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would like to see, again, Ted, there's not questioning whether or not we should pay somebody $200 or $500 or $1,000. It just makes no sense why we're adding the tax onto it. A stipend's a stipend, pay $500 stipend, that's what it always was. And then, again, a few treasurers ago, decided that we had to add on the $38 onto this one and the $8 onto the town nurse.
Oh, I
and-
didn't know how that
Right.
happened.
Yeah, I mean, the budget book, right here, I mean, it kind of shows that this is FICA and Medicare,
Which
basically.
doesn't make any
So that the
sense.
stipend itself
Oh,
is
you're right,
500.
it doesn't.
Yeah, when I got $250 for being on the school board
I mean,
every
that's his
Christmas,
problem, not ours.
they still took the taxes out after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 31 as written, so signify. Thank you.
Just on a side note, he did save the town a lot of trouble. I guess they cut the forest land about 10 years ago, and the logger went on to somebody else's land.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, the family, it had been passed down, I think twice. Somebody got it and then died, and then somebody else got it. Well, come to find out, we owed them $5,000 for cutting trees off their land, and they came and got it from us 10 years after it happened, and he had all the records and knew everything about it, so it kept us, so he knew exactly what we owed, and he could prove it and everything else, so we had to send them a check for
But when
$5,000.
these things happen, the law is that they can charge 3 times what your timber was worth.
Right.
So we could have had to pay, if the people had taken us to court, we'd have had to pay a lot more, but Steve was open with them. As soon as he found out we'd cut on theirs, he notified them, he negotiated with them, and it was settled peaceably.
Yep.
Which was good.
Thank you. Article 32, this one is actually going down 83%, $1,500 last year, $250 this year. So Article 32, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $250 for cemetery flags, markers, and repair of veterans' graves, Department 109-01.
Move
Promotion.
approval of the article as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 32 as written. On the floor for discussion. I guess the only thing that I want to mention in here, other than just proving the number, are we looking at a change in this in future years, as far as you can tell, Ted, judging from a recent set of information that talks about our obligations for cemetery maintenance?
We used to cut the grass on the cemeteries, but then we were told we couldn't do that anymore, so, but I think the contractor that we have still does that. I think he still goes out and weed whacks the cemeteries and everything else. I don't know who asked to lower that. That just came out to us on the warrant, so somebody had to approach Michelle and ask her to lower that figure.
Last year, let's see, what the heck was it?
1,500.
Yeah, but the reason why it was a difference there, Paul.
Yeah.
Was we had some veteran stones that needed to be repaired. And so they asked for more money.
Yeah.
Above and beyond the flags and the holders, so that's why that was increased. And, but traditionally, it's been a certain amount for flags and holders, and once again, that stuff got lumped in, with the Conservation Committee for some reason, and it never should have been. It's a town responsibility, it's a town, budget item. And that's where that's why it's where it is now, and that's where it needs to stay.
When Paul Garish was treasurer, Paul put the flags out because the town is obligated, that's part of the law.
Yeah.
And then when Paul gave it up, the 4-H clubs took it over. And I was one of the leaders, Olive was one of the leaders, and we went together, the 2 clubs, and we put the flags out. Now, I think that then when the Happy Helpers dissolved, Busy Workers were putting out the flags. And Hannah, being 4-H as well as conservation, I think gradually worked it into the Conservation Committee, puts out the flags. But they put out, we used to buy gross of flags a year. We have to buy every once in a while a second gross because we've got quite a few veterans out there now. And we also, if you know that the holders are metal, and people started stealing.
Yep.
our flag holders.
They were bronze originally.
And so we had to spend money to replace flag holders because of the people stealing the metal flag holders.
And now I think they're making the flag holders out of
I
plastic,
think they're making them heavy plastic now.
so that they don't steal.
Well,
And
3
I
years
know that-
ago, we were gonna go from plastic to durable, so, and I'm not sure what they're
The
doing now.
law the state law says that the veterans' graves will be maintained
Maintained,
right.
by the town.
So that's the question. I mean, are we actually doing that for all the known veterans' graves?
Yes,
And if we're
Yes.
not, you know, that the owner is taking that responsibility of the property?
I've never heard of any ones that weren't.
And, I can tell you that it's a thankless job, and it would take time, and when you come back out from putting flags out, you have to strip down and pick all the wood ticks off yourself, because many of the cemeteries, there may just be a single grave in an old woods road, and we'd have to go in and take the flag to the grave, and, a man came in my office just last week, and he was all excited because he'd found a grave of a veteran. He lives up on Acton Bridge, and he'd taken his dog and walked through the woods, not knowing that there was a cemetery down there. And of course, you can go by the old Lindsay Horn Road in there. And he thought he was gonna tell me something, and I said, yes, Sam Perkins. And you already know. He felt bad because he was so excited, he thought he'd found something.
And $250, I'm not sure that would even cover buying the flags now.
Well, yes, I think it'll cover
It does.
buying the flags. They were, last I knew, they were 140 something gross.
Well, and I would hope that, and certainly historically, it has been that if there are special needs, then we get a larger number for that year. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve Article 32 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $65,262 for donations, Department 109-20, as requested, and I am going to forego reading that, and it'll be up on the screen shortly. This one, this article itself, recognizing that this 5,000 in the next article is going down 1.4%. If you include the next $5,000 article, it's actually going up 6.2% in donations. Just considering this.
recommend
For
we
motion, please.
raise and appropriate $65,262 for
The same
donations.
amount.
Same amount,
Because the same
Second.
figures right across.
yep.
Okay, so, moved and seconded to raise and appropriate $65,262. Correct?
Yep.
Correct.
For donations.
Now,
It's on the floor. Go ahead.
the numbers that are up here now, Ted, your guys' numbers? It says Selectmen's recommend.
Yeah, that's what we're recommending, that we keep everybody flat. Actually, some of them have gone down a little bit, and I think there was only one or two that had asked for an increase, and we just decided where all the others didn't ask for an increase, we'd keep them all flat, but the ones that asked for a decrease, we did give them the decrease.
Unfortunately, they're not in the same order as they were last year. This year it's alphabetical. Last year, I think it was according to the budget book. But those are most of them are the same. There's
Yeah,
a couple that had requested more, that didn't get more.
Right.
And there's one, which I think is the Acton Food Pantry, that actually requested slightly
Food
less.
pantry went down.
Yeah, they came in last year for the first time and got $3,000, and they just asked for $2,500 this year. I don't know why they went down.
The dams look like they've gone down too, right? Sanford and Shelburne.
Slightly lower. Probably a reflection of a slightly decreased budget this year, but that represents 1/3 of their costs. The Sanford Shapley Dam Coalition here, last year on town floor, so that was sort of an interesting one last year, they had requested essentially a third of their budget.
Yeah.
And on town floor, we knocked them down to 25% of their budget with the understanding that Sanford was going to cover 50% and Acton and Shapley would each cover 25%. My thought at that time was that to, basically to do our diligence to, maintain our infrastructure that we get benefits from with our lakes, and, be good neighbors, with the understanding that there would be some talks in the future about actually officially joining these guys. So far, that has not happened, but my understanding is that things are looking up in that respect, that we conceivably will be having talks along those lines, although nothing is guaranteed. But this year, what we're in for here is 1/3 of their, 1/4 of their current budget, which is slightly less than than was voted on town floor last year. And the remainder of this stuff is flat or lower. So that's why that's slightly less.
Yeah, AWA isn't asking for a donation, it's under the Balch Lake improvement,
What's that?
the same amount, AWA.
Well, AWA is
Right,
5,000
but just,
here, and Balch Lake is...
oh, there it is, right
Next
there.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
this is
okay.
I've put both of them on here just because they're both donations and it's easier to consider them all at
Okay.
They
once.
moved Bulge off, I think, because it was a new one.
Okay,
But we're not actually on Article 34, but for reference, that is the total amount of donations that's being requested.
didn't see
But right now, we are talking about Article
that.
33. And AWWA, Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance, and I think it was spelled out last year, maybe. Yeah, right here.
yep.
Yeah. They asked for 5 last year.
Right.
And that's what they're asking for now.
Right. There's only one decrease. Actually, 2 decreases if you include the Acton, Sanford and Shapley Dam Coalition. So this is, like it was last year, this would be a straight donation. We have no say in what happens in the Dam Coalition. At some point, we may, and if we choose to do so, I believe it will be costing the same amount, except that we will have some say in what happens. Is there any further discussion warranted here? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to recommend to raise and appropriate $65,262, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries. So Article 34 is basically just going to come up to the same page, so let's just move down to that. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $5,000 for Balch Lake Improvement Association, Department 109-20, as requested. And again, that will, right now, as it stands, per our recommendations, we're slightly decreased from last year. Adding 5,000 to that will bring us to 6.2% increase in donations from last year. And this is a first-year request, which is why it's here. You may or may not find it reasonable or appropriate to be throwing $5,000 at an organization in a first-year request, but that's part of the discussion. Is there a motion on the floor at this time?
Move approval of the article as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 34. Let's see if that's how we would phrase it here. Yes, to recommend approval of Article 34 as written. It's on the floor for discussion.
Do we have any idea, Ted, how much Newfield and Wakefield, I guess, is giving
Is giving
towards
to
it?
them. I know New Hampshire was giving them quite a bit of money. I don't know about Newfield. The reason we put it on as a separate one is because we've got past practice with all the other lakes that have been coming up in the last couple of years where they all got $1,000. If we give Balch Lake $5,000, I realize that they have an issue that the other lakes don't have. But, if you look, Horn Pond came in at 1,000. I think, where's the one for, that came in
AWWA
last
is
year?
5,000.
Yeah, but they've been, but they work on several lakes, and.
Right, and the York County Community Action, Acton Shapley YCC is 22,000, but they do,
They're
there are
different.
multiple lakes and they do a lot
Right, they do different
on
things
on
too.
other properties.
I think what's happened with mulch, they have got invasive weeds in
Right.
there that they have got to try and get rid of, and,
Great East didn't ask for anything this year?
what's that?
Yeah, it's right up there, GELIA, 2,000.
Oh, I thought that was Celia. See, my glasses.
Julia,
Grady's Lake.
see without your glasses,
I-
you missed the
Great East
lake.
Lake Improvement Association.
Yeah.
So,
Takes a couple of years to
To
get
give-
those down.
it was our thought to give 5,000 to Balch Lake when AWA gets 5,000, and they do 3 or 4 lakes, correct? And they have the monitors out there, the kids that are monitoring everything else. Balch Lake has taken a boat and converted it to go around and pull the weeds up. They have divers underneath, and they got a vacuum system that sucks them up, because I guess even one little piece of the plant hits the dirt, and then it's another plant again. And then they're pouring a lot of chemicals into the water. I'm hoping somebody will come to the town meeting from Balch Lake Association to explain it. They have come to us 2 years in a row to put this on, but they always come after town meeting. So we told them they had to be in by January, so this year they made it in on time. So we just wanted to separate it so there could be talk on the floor like there was on the dam last year. And people can decide whether they want to give them $5,000, because, like I said, we've already got several lakes that came in and we only gave them 1,000, so we didn't want to make the decision to put it in there and say, yeah, you should give them 5,000.
Now, Balch is the upstream lake.
Yes, it is.
Upstream of
Right,
Saco
but it
River.
doesn't
Goes
appear
into
to be
the Saco
upstream
River.
of much but swampland, correct? I mean, I don't see it going out into other than
Well-
wetlands.
It goes into the Saco River. It doesn't come into any of the other lakes in there.
Yeah, it doesn't go into Great East or
And
anything.
I actually drove up
Oh, it's
there
very close.
last week. It's a really pretty lake, but just to kind of get a feel for, for the area.
Go and see it in another month or two when the grass gets taller.
Yeah,
But in the lake, it's
yeah.
very shallow?
Now, is this going to the Lake Association or, well,
Well, it's going to the association, but for
Improvement
the purpose
Association?
of.
Yeah.
Is that 2 different things?
Is what?
The Balch Lake Association or the Balch Lake Improvement Association?
That's the Balch Lake Improvement Association.
Limp.
I don't think they have 2, I think they just
No,
have
it's
the
just-
one.
They don't have a Balch Lake Association?
Oh,
well, they might just have owners or
well, they have
something,
got,
but
Is it
like,
earmarked for
Lakewood
something?
Drive has got their
Is
own
it earmarked for,
association, but.
That's what the letter says.
No, I guess my question is, you've got the Great East Lake Association.
Yep.
You got the Horn Pond Association, you got the Wilson Pond Association. Is there a Balch Pond Association, or are they called the Balch Pond Improvement
I
Association?
think they're 2 different things, like you've got a road association
No.
for some of the ponds, no?
No.
Well, the Great East Lake Great East Lake Improvement Association is up there,
It's the same, it's a,
but it's pretty much the same.
I am sure that they're
I think they
using all the money
changed it
they
to
get for this
the
boat and these
improvement.
chemicals. So whether there's another association like the other lakes have it, I don't know if there is or not.
Okay, so I've read this at a prior workshop. Would you like the 2 or 3 sentence summary, or do you want to, should I?
No, I don't want to read the whole thing, Paul.
Okay, so bottom line is, they're trying to control an invasive plant species, variable milfoil, discovered in 2001. The milfoil efforts are and will be ongoing for years to come. This effort is viewed as one of long-term management and control, not short-term eradication. We ask that you consider allocating $5,000 annually to aid in the control of this invasive weed. That's the short and the short of it.
so annually, so once
They
we
can
start
only get
it.
it for this year.
Well,
Yeah.
They have to be
Right,
asked,
it's-
come back and ask for it.
It's on an annual basis.
If they don't put in a request on time again next year, then they don't go on there.
But they're thinking that this is gonna be
Oh, yeah, yeah.
continuous.
How much,
But it is specifically for that purpose,
how
according
much
to this letter.
Acton taxable property is there on Balch Lake?
Somebody,
There's a good amount.
Plenty.
yeah, I think there's
Yeah,
30 houses on the lake.
All that development that they put
a
in,
big subdivision.
yeah.
Quite a bit.
So we get a lot of tax revenue
You get a lot of
from the
tax revenue off
houses that are on the lake.
the development.
Off the development that has, they don't necessarily have lakefront property, but they have shared access to it.
Have you been up the development at all?
Off of Acton
Go up
Ridge Road.
sometime and look at the houses up there. There's a 3-story huge homes. The big taxes are coming off from that section.
Because I know, wasn't, Balch Lake converted a rig that sucks the milfoil up. And as I remember, they had like 20 grand invested in the thing. And the problem with milfoil is just what you said. Once you've got it in there, it's a bear to get rid of.
Well, of course, the state of Maine doesn't allow chemicals either. New Hampshire and the Balch is where they put the chemicals in.
Yeah.
And it stops right at the border. It doesn't interact at all.
So they put in chemicals on New
Especially since the
Hampshire,
exit
but
is
they
in
don't
Maine.
down on the Maine end.
Doesn't drift down at all.
No.
Yeah, it sees that invisible line, it just stops right there. So you can see all the milfoils in Maine, that's why they need the $5,000.
Unfortunately, the milfoil came from New Hampshire.
Yes, came from,
But
Bellow
if
Lake.
they don't get the milfoil under control,
Or keep it under
you
control.
have people coming to the town of Acton and asking for a tax abatement.
oh yeah,
Because as the pond gets worse, the value of the property goes down.
Exactly.
So,
Makes sense.
yeah, it sounds like a lot of money and you hate to do it, but if they don't get it under control,
It's an investment.
It's not that we hate to do it, we just thought because it's so different than the other lakes requests, that we should treat it differently and let the town have the discussion. That's all, that's the only reason we did that.
and
If we had put it in there with all the other ones, unless somebody brought it up at the town meeting that that's a brand-new one and look at the amount, it might just get voted in without anybody even discussing it. And I think people should be aware of what's going on up there, because you're right.
And-
We've got big houses up there, and then all of a sudden the lake is gone, because didn't that happen to a lake in Sanford?
China. No, China Lake. Is the big
Isn't there one in
example that
Sanford too that
everybody,
has a problem with the
might be Estes Pond or something.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Estes Pond.
China.
It did happen in China,
It
too.
did happen in China. China Lake, yes. In China, Maine.
Right next to
I think
Poland,
it's
yeah.
China, Maine.
I mean, I'm not opposed to this. It's just,
no, it's, but as you say, somebody should come and be able to explain it to the people at town meeting.
That's right.
I mean, how much do you pay for things
They care enough to
before
send somebody.
you just,
then-
you got no money left?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I agree with protecting things and, like I say, I mean, the pot's gonna come empty someday here, and what are you gonna do then?
And it's an increase in, where everything else is flat, it's gonna be a
Another
6%
$5,000.
increase on our charities, where
$5,000.
we tried to keep the charities flat, so.
We'll see what the Salmon Falls River Improvement Association comes up for a request next year.
Any further discussion?
Salmon Falls River. It's getting late, it took a while for that one to come.
I knew you'd catch on to that.
I've kayaked up that river.
It needs improvement, right?
I heard it, I started looking for it.
I know, I was looking down for it too, I'm like, where is
And
it?
then I said, oh, yeah, right.
Sorry, I don't have a column for next year. Any further discussion
Big
on this
boat
one?
parade there, down there every year.
All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 34 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, motion carries. Article 35. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $5,500 for dams, Department 109-50, to be expended as follows: Dam Capital Improvement Fund, $5,000, Balts Lake Dam Operator Stipend, $500.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 35 as written. On the floor.
Now, this stipend does not have the tax put in it.
Correct.
No,
Right. A lot of them don't in there.
Nothing like
Because
consistency.
they-
I know, why aren't we consistent with
It's-
that?
it's a thing that this is what they request, is $500. Newfield, will contact us and ask us for $500 to see the dam operator, nothing.
Oh, okay, that's why, because Newfield hires the operator and we just pay half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so in the budget book, there is no separation out here, it's just the 500.
Now, this dam capital improvement fund is
Now,
No swearing.
putting aside money in
Yeah.
case
But when
something,
they have to have repairs, that we've got some money to do it. We've had to at different times, just replace some boards or things like this.
right, and it's worth mentioning what's on I think Ted made an attempt last year because of the donation to the Dam Coalition, the Sanford Shapley Dam Coalition, because the dams in question are the same ones that we've been putting away capital funds for a couple of years. He made a motion to strike that from this part of the article.
No,
and that
what
voted
happened
down.
was,
So-
we started this because we were not going to join the Sanford Shapley Dam group because they wanted us to pay 25%, one-third. And we felt, Bill and Larissa were going to all the meetings, and they felt that we should only be paying 25% and having some say in what was going to happen. And the town manager for Sanford at that time just said no. So Bill and Larissa decided to no longer attend the meetings and put that article in to put $5,000 away. So if something should happen to the dam, we would have money in the bank that we could put towards our share of fixing the dam, but not give the money to Sanford every year so that they were holding on to the money. Well, then they came in and brought it in as a charity instead. The people on the floor voted for the charity, so then I said, well, if you're gonna give it to them, then we don't need to put the other 5,000 away too. Well, the people on the floor decided that, yeah, we want to do that too. So that's why that article's still in there. That money from this article stays in our bank account and doesn't go anywhere until
it's needed.
something happens that they need money, then we have to go back to the town and say, okay, we've got 25,000 or 50,000 and this is what's happened, this is what our share is, do you want to spend the money? So that money doesn't go anywhere until the town says that we can spend it.
Now, Sanford owns the dam, don't they?
Yeah, and they have control of it too.
And it's a requirement that they maintain that dam because there has to be a certain amount of water go down the river or they can't run their sewage treatment plant.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons that when this came up before, I said, why should we pay 1/3? And why should Shapley pay 1/3? Sanford
it
should
does-
pay a half and Shapley,
And that's why we dropped out. But then the town manager changed, and by the time they came to the town meeting last year, suddenly it was, okay, we only want you to pay 25%. But if you look at last year's, they asked for a third first. And then the argument's on the floor, and it was the selectman from Shapley that stood up and said, no, we only want a quarter, Shapley's only paying a quarter. But they did come in and ask for a full third as a charity, but that came from
but the other
the old town
question,
manager from
the
Sanford.
other question that I was concerned about was, if we joined this and then something happened to that dam, what was our limit of liability going to be? And
We wouldn't be owning the dam.
Yeah, we still don't own the dam.
the guy from Sanford wouldn't even discuss it.
That's because they own the dam, and we're never gonna buy the darn thing. We're not gonna even buy 10% of it. They own it. And the truth of the matter is, doesn't matter what we put in for money, what we put money towards maintaining it, or anything. When they need that water down Sanford, they wanna drop the lake up here at Mousen Lake by 2-3 feet, because they need the water, and we haven't any rain for 3 months. Mousen Lake is gonna be down 3 feet, and there's not a darn thing the town of Acton or Shapley's gonna do about it.
But I get the telephone calls.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. But you know from experience, Lorraine, it's no different than the Salmon Falls River or down the Milton Three Ponds. And if they don't wanna let the water out up to Great East Lake, because they wanna keep it there for whatever reason, or up to Wilson Pond, I mean, you've been down through Milton, see how low the water is down through those ponds, and you have seen the Salmon Falls River no more than a brook before, because they wanna keep the water level up at the lake. And the heck with the environment, and the heck with the fish, and all this stuff, they wanna keep the water. So the person that has the control of the water is gonna make sure they have the water.
I've seen my 20-foot deep pond go down to 2 feet deep.
That's right.
Because I'm up above the Salmon Falls right there by Milton Mills, and it'll just suck the water right out of my pond when they've got the dams closed off and we haven't had rain.
I've seen that river down there, down on the Tar Road, where the water's only 6 feet wide, coming down out of that river, 6 feet wide, because they need the water up to the lake. So that is, I guess, is the basis of this money we're given to protect all this water and stuff, is because it's very self-serving. You know, it isn't really, we're really concerned about all of it. We're concerned about what's going on at this particular place. And over the years, Lorraine will tell you, and Nancy will tell you, that's the way it's been. You know, it'll be a big hurrah about something, and then 5 years from now, it'll be about something else, and the milfoil up Balch Lake, well, they've always had milfoil up there, we can't do nothing about it anyway. Who cares? You know, we're gonna worry about it down in Ted's Pond.
Can't get there from here.
You know, but that's the truth, that's how it is, and that's what frustrates me about these environmental stuff, is it really depends on what's going on at the moment.
Any further discussion about Article 35?
And I have no idea what they had to do with Article 35, but
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 35 as written, so signify. Thank you. Anybody want 5 minutes before we make a mad dash to get this thing finished?
No,
Yes.
make a bad
Oh,
dash.
make it mad dash, okay.
Make a mad dash?
all right, make a mad dash.
Kid that's hungry.
Okay, anyway, that was
Yeah.
5-0, the motion carries. Article 36. Balance is carried.
Waive the reading.
I would be doing that. I'll go with the first sentence. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to carry forward the following department fund balances and allow the balances carried forward to be appropriated to the designated department. And the rest of that you see in front of you. There's several different sections. I'm looking for a motion at this time.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 36 as written. On the floor for discussion. And this is, I think the only differences I noted are down below here. There's two new ones, the cemetery department funds. So I assume that means that if there's any of the $250 given budget that is left over, that will roll into the following year. Or whatever we choose to fund it at, or what they choose to request on a given year, if there's anything left over. And also the town hall building maintenance and repair fund, which is fairly new.
Last year was the first.
That's 2012 Article 8, that was the carrying forward maintenance fund balance because of the siding and the windows stuff. And so that account exists at this time. And it's gonna, in theory, receive more funding if the town goes for one of the following articles here.
Yeah, it'll be $25,000 for the budget and then carry over whatever we have left from this year.
The only thing that I would like to have you check, Ted, if you would, with Michelle, is I didn't know we had a cemetery department.
Didn't know what?
We had a cemetery department.
A cemetery department?
Yeah,
That's what it says,
Yeah,
cemetery department funds.
that might be what she called that in her
It's,
bookkeeping.
Fiduciary funds that we get interest from. There are
Oh.
five accounts.
Thank you, Lorraine.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, we have five fiduciary accounts that,
When you use that word, I understood what you meant.
yeah.
So, if this is new then, and those have been around for a while, what has been happening with those accounts?
It isn't new, really.
No,
It's
Well,
just-
this is new, the cemetery thing is new on Article 36, or?
yeah, it's probably something that should have been included in there.
The accountant probably picked up on it and told Michelle to put it on there to
Yeah.
carry it over every
It was
year.
just something that was just missed, that's all.
Because it's only been a couple of years that we've had this article. I mean, there was always some that were there, but then we've added some over the years, so it's probably, the accountant said you should put this in to carry this one over.
We used to consider that a dead issue, but we don't anymore.
Okay, any further discussions on this one? No. All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 36 as written, so signify. Thank you. All opposed? And we have okay, so 4-0 and an abstention for the reasons previously stated. Thank you. Article 37. We're getting there. Article 37, to see if the town will vote to transfer up to $40,000 from the undesignated fund to the capital improvement fund for future town improvement needs.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 37 as written on the floor.
Who seconded that, Nancy? Who seconded?
Oh, no.
I have Dennis, I heard Dennis before Holly.
Dennis.
Of course, Dennis is closer, that sound carries and stuff.
Plus I got a bigger mouth than Holly does.
All of
So did
these
I
things
do.
apply. Okay, I guess, Ted, you might as well take it away for the rationale for this.
Yeah, this is what we're estimating that we're gonna have left in all the budgets, at the end of the year. So we're recommending that we start a capital improvement fund, with $40,000. This will be funds that might be left from the fire department, from the, transfer station. It doesn't go into any funds that, in the road funds, and in any money that's left from any of the departments within the town hall. We're estimating that to be about $40,000 more than we, left from what we budgeted for last year. So we want to start that fund. That money will go into an account that we have to come back before the town and ask them to spend it. We're looking at, a salt and sand shed that's, pretty much has no insurance except for liability because it's falling apart. We've got a schoolhouse, that's just been approved to be on the National Register for Historical Sites that's fallen apart, the roof is gone, so we need to start sending money. Who knows when we're gonna have to do a new roof on the fire department, or up at the transfer station, or a piece of equipment goes down to the transfer station, so we wanna start sending money, saving money. So what we're gonna do is anything that's left over each year will still be in the undesignated fund, but it'll be set aside to just do maintenance on buildings, because, a lot of our buildings haven't had anything done for a long time, so it's time we start saving and figuring out a way to take care of them in the future.
Let me clarify, Ted, just so that people watching us on TV
Yeah.
doesn't think that elementary school is falling apart and people start
Doesn't include
calling you
elementary
up
school.
and say we need to increase the school budget by another $300,000. That we're talking about the Lincoln School.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to do a little translation.
It just made 20 years, right? Was it last year or the year before when
Yeah.
we paid the last payment? So it's
Right.
got to be 20 years to be an antique, so
Yeah.
it's not the Acton Middle,
Right.
K
Well, we
through
do
8.
have a couple of sections that are getting close. What is
I
it,
wondered if it had the Little Red
1970
Schoolhouse up
something
by my
section?
way.
What is it?
The Little Red Schoolhouse, I wondered if that's what you meant, but
No, we don't own that one anymore.
No, it's privately owned now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's why it's
Has
still in
been
good
for a long
shape, and
time.
I own the one on
It is in good
French
shape.
Street, and that one's in great shape,
Yeah.
and where's the other one?
Blue Red Schoolhouse.
Oh, the library. So, but that one down there, the roof is leaking, the foundation is breaking up again, and there's no electricity there anymore because the electric company won't give us electricity anymore because the building wasn't safe, and they had a wood stove in there that wasn't safe, and the water's getting inside, it's getting moldy. It's a shame to see it go, but somebody did some work and got it approved by the federal government to be in a National Historical Site, so now it's going to be even more difficult to fix it because you can't do anything without permission from them, so.
However, there should be some federal funds available by grant, now that it's on
that'll be good.
the historical
Yeah.
list.
If we can get somebody that wants to take on that responsibility of applying for a grant and making sure that that is done completely by the book, because they oversee those things pretty well.
Okay, so the other thing to point out about this one is that we're transferring funds, we're not appropriating funds, so any expenditures from the capital improvement fund will still need to be approved by the town.
Correct.
And some of that is actually coming up in the next article. Any further discussion on this? All in favor of the motion on the floor to recommend approval of Article 37 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, motion carries. Article 38. Article 38, to see if the town will vote to appropriate an expenditure of up to $15,000 of the capital improvement fund if the funds are available for accessibility improvements to the town hall. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 38 as written. On the floor for discussion.
What this is for is if the town approves to put the 40,000 in, we have about 7,000, I believe, in that account right now from the Loop Road property that we sold last year. We want $15,000 to fix the front sidewalk. We're going to put a retaining wall across the front and a legal wheelchair ramp all the way up from the front of the building over however far it has to come, and then a staircase over by the library. That big hump there, and, I mean, it's dangerous. I walked out with her one day, there was an elderly woman that had one of those cranes with the 3 feet on it, and it wasn't bad weather or anything, and she was doing all she could to get down over that hump.
Oh,
So,
right.
yeah, so we're gonna make that a permanent, handicapped access to the front of the building. And then we'll take this one out, because I don't know how far that one's gonna have to come. It has to be, I think it has to drop only an inch and a foot in order to come down, yeah. So it's gonna be, a long ramp, but at least it'll make it more accessible. We're gonna do a nice retaining wall, not cement. We'll do like those fancy blocks, and so we have an estimate of $10,000 to $15,000, so we're gonna ask for 15 just to make sure we have enough. Anything that's left will go back into the capital improvement fund. That's the only thing we'll use that for.
You know, the place that has set up similar to just what you're talking about, Ted, is the entrance to Frisbee Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Same thing, you get a set of steps, you can go up one side,
Yeah.
or you come on the other side,
Down
down the ramp.
Yeah, you're right, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So, that's what the 15,000 is for, and the only way we can get it is if the town approves to us to put the 40,000 in, so this is no tax dollars, this is money that we already have, we're just asking for permission to spend it to make ourselves legal.
So that if the funds are available is a direct reference to Article 37, basically.
Correct.
So otherwise, you won't get 15 out of it.
No, there's only 7 in there now, and we haven't got any bids on that other piece of property that we have up for sale this year. We asked for $10,000 minimum, and we haven't got any bids, so we're gonna have to go down on that.
In reality, I mean, you're in violation, so in reality, you have to fix it, you really don't have any choice.
Oh, exactly, yeah, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 38 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0. Motion carries. Article 39, and Holly, I'm thinking that this is probably going to be another one of those abstention things.
Okay.
Article 39, to see if the town will vote to ratify the transfer, excuse me, let me just bring this up before I read it. Ratify the transfer of $29,440.35 for fiscal year 2013 overdrafts in the following accounts from undesignated funds. Department 105-30, sand, salt, stockpile, $21,637.43. And Department 105-10, District 1, plowing and sanding, $7,802.92, totaling $29,440.35. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
Uh-oh.
Now separate that one, you
What was the
guys.
speed of sound on that one? I'm gonna give it to Mark, because he has fewer seconds. Okay. So Article 39 is on the, well, let's see. It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 39 as written, if I didn't say that, on the floor. And this one, basically, this is about the long and the short of it. There were a couple of, looking at the expense book, there were a couple of accounts that overdrew from what was budgeted, and essentially this is ratification of those two accounts. In fact, if we hadn't been carrying over some funds from previous year to allow these accounts to actually start a little better than they might otherwise, the situation would have been a little bit worse. This year there were 20-plus snow events. Last year there were about 12, totaling 93.5 inches, rather than last year's 40 inches, and that comes from actonmaine.com. And generally speaking, it's considered more efficient to budget for an average year and then incur possible overdrafts, which is what happened this past year.
Yeah, and we're legally allowed to go over that winter budget by 30% without having a special town meeting.
Over the entire budget?
No, just over the winter plowing.
Oh, okay.
And for the last, as I said earlier, for the last 2 years, we've gone over budget on the salt and sand. But because we can use the money from the undesignated fund to keep us going and then come back to the town afterwards. The reason we didn't come and ask the town last year was we were set up a little bit differently as far as the carryovers, and there was quite a bit of money left in the transfer station. So we just used that money from the transfer station to pay for the overage on the salt and sand last year, but we've broken that off where they're getting their money carried over now, so we can't be taken away from the transfer station paying for that. But it's all the same money, it's all still coming from the undesignated fund, and this is just a housekeeping thing that the accountant says that to do it right, we should be asking this question to the town floor every year, just to let everybody know that, yes, we did go over, and then, make a decision from there how we go forward. But again, I don't think we should increase the salt and sand, because we could go down to 15 storms next year, and that's money that people are putting ahead and, storing it in the bank account here at the town if we don't need it. And we do have plenty of money in the undesignated fund. We were just under $1 million this year, so we can afford to pay, $30,000 when we have to go over.
Paul, where'd you say you got this information about the snow events?
I've been keeping statistics on snowfall up on actonmaine.com since I moved here in '94. So you can actually go out there and see how many events, how much at each event, what's the total. I figured that's the perfect subject matter for a math class, Give me the mean and the median of the, the snowfall for such and such a year. But anyway, I figured it was useful to kind of try to explain, what they were facing this year and why we might have gone over.
Oh, that's that website that you got going?
Yeah, not org, com.
Okay, not that other one there that's full of everything that they want to say about Percy all the time that ain't true.
Don't worry about
That's a whole different one.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. I just didn't know.
There's an actonmaine.org, which has town-specific stuff, and the town clerk maintains that. And there's actonmaine.com, which has been out for a little bit longer, and which has been somewhat languishing as of late, but I do have some plans for it at some point.
But neither one of them have that Acton Maine website.
And neither one of them, I don't think, says anything about Mark, no.
Okay, that was that other one they put out all the propaganda on.
Yes.
All right. I just want to make sure.
carrying along here.
Yes, indeed. Is there any further discussion on Article 39? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 39 as written, so signify. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. 4-0 and 1 abstention for the same reason. Article 40. Coming down the home stretch. Yeehaw. Article 40, to see if the town will vote to accept any and all funds received from the state of Maine and the federal government.
Move approval of the article as written.
Second.
It's been moved and most heartily seconded to recommend approval of Article 40 as written. On the floor for discussion. Now, this is a housekeeping article, however, it has been changed slightly since past years. We were a bit more verbose in 2010. We changed it to a more condensed version in 2011, and I'm not quite sure why that was. And I think that what we're doing this year is a bit clearer and a bit broader, so that we perhaps in more cases can accept funds that perhaps in prior years we might not have been able to. So now we're saying state of Maine, Maine State Legislature, so anybody else in the state of Maine want to give us money, we can do that. And now it's talking about the federal government, federal funds, kind of the same thing. Anyway, same spirit, slightly different wording. Is there any further discussion on that one? All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 40 as written, so signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion carries. Article 41. Article 41, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the following estimated revenues and fund balances to reduce the amount to be raised by taxation. Fiscal year 2013-14, municipal revenues unknown, municipal undesignated fund balance unknown. Looking for a motion.
Move approval of the article as written.
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of
Did you
Article
notice the difference,
41.
Paul?
Excuse me?
Do you notice the difference in the tone of Holly's voice?
I'm rather reticent, but I'll accept it anyway.
Absolutely.
Been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 41 as written. On the floor for discussion. The only key elements here that I can discern is that this does tie to the tax commitment process only. There's no appropriation after that point. It essentially allows the selectmen to use these funds at that moment in time to, as they see fit, to potentially keep the tax rate low because of other resources the town may have at the moment. And by the way, please don't run out the door as soon as we through this, because I got one or two quickies to go over per the agenda. Anyway, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to recommend approval of Article 41 as written, so signify. Thank you. Yes. 5-0, the motion carries. Okay, we're done with the warrant. Move back to the agenda.
Do you need the camera to do your?
No, other than to say, let's see, town one, blah, blah, blah. Next meeting, final Warrant and Finance Committee meeting will be to approve 5 sets of minutes. We do not have that scheduled yet, but expect that before town meeting. Town meeting on Saturday, June 15th, 9 a.m., Acton Elementary School. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn at 10:22. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you all for your